building than to a strata within a building. A single-use building allows for the ability for us to expand with additional stories without displacing others. And a smaller footprint is required to accommodate growth over the next 30 to 50 years. The site should be in the Cove Bay Water District and the Snug Cove Sewer District. A health center needs a secure water supply, and a hookup to sewer also means less land required to accommodate a septic field. And finally, the health center will have an ambulance bay and may even incorporate the ambulance station in the future. Access for the ambulance should be separate from other vehicular and pedestrian traffic. Lot 3 is the only area of the community lands that addresses every aspect of our criteria for the most appropriate location for the health center. We're also asking council to abide by its resolution regarding a lot size of 0.142 hectares. This represents less than 1/10 of Lot 3. Nevertheless, it will provide the center with enough square footage to accommodate a team of physicians, a dental practice, and ancillary health services, plus Vancouver coastal health programs, and potentially the ambulance service. It gives us the ability to create the team-based facility that the medical experts on our Health Services Committee tells us will make a real difference for healthcare access on Bowen. And finally, we ask council to honor its resolution to provide the land at a nominal lease rate. Construction of the health center will be funded entirely by voluntary contributions. It will not take a penny of municipal tax revenue, not for capital construction, not for ongoing operating costs. We have a fundraising target of $4.5 to $5 million, and we cannot afford to add land costs to this already ambitious goal. We're asking council only for a small portion of land in exchange for a high-value community amenity which will improve health outcomes for virtually everyone on Bowen for decades to come. Council very rightly wants to find the highest and best use of our community lands. You already delivered on that goal in spades with this particular land allocation. Please don't let short-term aims now overrule that very good decision. The use of a small portion of Lot 3 for a community health center will deliver far more value to the community than a quick one-time sale of the land, and will continue to deliver this value for over 30+ years. These resolutions made good sense for the long-term health of this community when you passed them last year. They make just as much sense today. We ask council to now reaffirm its Lot 3 commitments to the health center so that we can continue our work. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Points well taken. And as I said to Robin, we are going to expedite it, and you'll be a big part of all the negotiations that start right at the beginning, and hopefully we'll find a way real quick. Good. Thank you. Oh, sorry, I have questions.
Thanks. Thanks, Maureen. Thank you very much for coming, and I agree with a lot of what you're saying, especially the walkability and all that. The question I asked Robin as well, and it does concern me a bit because I've heard from the healthcare center you want a standalone building. And one of the challenges that I've been very critical of the fire hall of this, which is a standalone building, is that the idea was going to be a bit of a village cove atmosphere there, a bit like Artisan Square, multi-use. And one of my concerns is that we have a standalone fire hall, then we have a standalone health center, and we don't have enough space there then to create that mix that we can create, maybe a bit of retail and maybe a coffee shop and whatnot up there. So that's a concern that I have, that this being stuck on the standalone aspect and not like we heard with Birch, being willing to work with partners to bring that together. Can you speak a bit more about, well, you said the reasons why, but right. Is that a deal breaker for you, or is that something that you are willing to look at?
I think it would, nothing's a deal breaker because, you know, when you're begging, you don't have any leverage. I
don't want you to think you're begging, but yeah, I get it.
You know, I would say because of the reasons that we've laid out, it's certainly not. We don't feel that a multi-use building would be appropriate for the health center. Particularly when you start talking about the ambulance, when you start talking about our need to expand. So if we need to go up, if, for example, you're maybe talking about putting residential on top of this, then we've got to kick those people out 30 years from now, 20 years from now, when we're ready to build. Every especially island health center that we've talked to that have gone through this process over the last number of years, the thing that they all consistently regretted was not building it large enough, because they had to expand. So I think expansion, we've got to do it right, we've got to build in the possibility and the capacity for expansion. So I think that's just a key thing.
And I agree, and I would have loved to see it even work part of the fire hall ambulance together, and that just makes sense. I'm in healthcare, I get it. As far as lot location goes, as far as your fundraising ability, because one of my concerns is that you're going to be stuck now waiting for, through prime fundraising season,
Exactly.
not being able to raise funds, and we haven't decided lot 3 or 1 or wherever, or 2. If you have a commitment that you will get a piece of land for nominal, whatever rate it is, on a municipal piece of property that's specifically tied to lot 3, is that going to allow you then to do, I'm not saying we're not doing lot 3, but will that allow you to continue to do your fundraising? Are we not going to put you?
I'm not sure. Quite honestly, last fall, I was talking to someone who potentially was going to be donating quite a bit. And this was before the election. And they said to me, I'd really rather not commit before the next election. Because exactly what's happening right now is what that person was concerned with. So, we have a very generous community. They're also getting very weary of donating. And now having all of these commitments, which we think we're ready, and then have to say, nope, sorry, we're really not ready, it really jeopardizes the credibility of the entire project. Yeah.
Two questions, Chair. The first one is sort of unrelated to the specific discussion here. And just in thinking through some of the resolutions coming up, I was asked again whether the health centre had completed its business plan to demonstrate that it was a non-profit organization. Has that been done?
I think I'll let Tim answer that.
We have a business plan coming to our meeting on Wednesday for approval. Obviously, it's still a little preliminary now because there's a number of unknowns, but it absolutely does pay for itself.
Okay, that would be helpful to share
Yeah.
with council and with the community. And then the second thing that's come up, and it wasn't really a worry for me, but I suppose it ought to have been, it was that if the land were committed to the health centre, and it took you quite a long time to raise the funds that were necessary in order to build on that site, essentially we would have tied up an important piece of land in the Cove. So I wonder how you respond to that comment.
It's definitely a possibility. I can't say that it's not, but at the same time, I also know that the pledges and the commitments that we've been able to get from the community with vaporware, essentially. So we tend to be quite confident that we will be able to raise the money and do so relatively quickly. Our intention is just to, if it seems to be slow moving, we're just going to continue to press it and push at it. We're also talking to see if we can find funds from other sources. The community health centers have become a real priority for the local provincial government. There may even be some funds available there, which would be historic practically. You just don't get funds from the government for a health center. So we're definitely going to pursue every avenue that we can.
And then finally, I'm thinking in terms of the work that Birch is doing, where Robin and her team are able to proceed with part of their feasibility, and then they hit a wall if they don't have the site because they have to design for the specific site. How much more work do you have to do other than fundraising to get to that point where you're designing for a specific site?
Well, we have to have the site.
So there's no other work other than fundraising. You're ready to move into
Yeah,
site
we're
design.
talking to various modular construction companies. Again, though, we're having to kind of put the brakes on that a little bit because until you know what type of topography you're dealing with and what else is going on, whether it does have to be multi-use, there's really not a lot you can do.
Okay,
So
so it's a different circumstance in that you've done your needs assessment, you have done the preliminary feasibility, and you're at the potential building.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else? Michael?
Sorry, thank you for your presentation today. In a sentence, would it be fair to say that what you're looking to council for is certainty?
Yes.
That's, I
We-
understand. I understand
It's
it
what
is
we-
not a trap question.
No, I know.
It's not a trap question.
It's what we thought we had.
Yeah, it's a very simple question.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's not a trap question. What you're looking for
Yeah.
and hoping for to proceed expeditiously is certainty.
It's certainly, we're ready, yeah, yeah.
And you've also, if I understand correctly, done some preliminary designs for that site.
We have,
Well, very, very preliminary.
Yeah, but you have spent money on getting started with what concepts might fit on that site.
Anybody else?
okay,
Thank
thank
you,
you
Sharon.
very much.
There's a bird out there again.
Okay, so,
Tennis, just one more public comment.
oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
Tennis leads out regarding defect.
Well, really, I was hoping Bruce Russell would be here and I'd come after him, because he's far more eloquent than me. But with that said, I wanted to say that I've been a resident in Deep Bay for 6 decades. With the increased number of buoys and boats in the bay, I no longer can row my original yellow bow and arrow. A family tradition I'd like to continue, and I see it's starting to look better with less boats, though there's some on the rocks and some down deep. The unattended boats, plastic, tarps, seats, including a Zodiac, have washed up on the shores of my beach, and then, well, it's our beach, but then we have to dispose of them. In the 50s, 60s, and 70s, well-kept large visitors' boats would come to the island and anchor in Deep Bay. The increase in the number of anchors, boats, and the odd float have eliminated room, so boats appear to no longer visit the island for a few days and support the economy. Unattended vessels that wash up or sink are disgusting. The salmon are also compromised, and I sometimes think twice about going swimming when I've seen people doing things over the edge. We, the taxpayers, should not be doing the cleanup. With more vigilant monitoring and disallowing now will save us all the aggravation and costs in the future when we, the taxpayers, have to pull them up and dispose of them. And so I'm supporting Bruce's cause for the Friends of Mannion Bay, though I still call it Deep Bay. And thank you for your help in that regard. And a PS, I'm wondering if you would consider divorcing the costly island trust.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you
Okay,
very
thank
much.
you.
All right, so we're gonna move on to the consent agenda. Anybody have anything?
I'd like to pull the February 19th minutes and ask Yeah, and then when we get to those,
Okay.
3.1.
Yeah. So,
Gary, I also want to pull 3.1, so
okay, let's
I'll
pull.
speak to that as well.
Thank you, David.
I'd like to pull
Hello.
3.5.
3.5. Okay. All right. We'll just add that on. 10. Okay, anybody else? Somebody want to read the recommendation? Okay. The council approve the items as outlined in the March 11, 2019 consent agenda, except for the ones that were pulled. Move that, second, all in favor?
In favor.
Thanks, David. Okay, so now we're down to delegation. We have a very fine delegation today. Ariega, our local constable here in charge.
Yes.
And, Staff Sergeant?
Sergeants.
Sergeant. Okay. Garrett Bradley.
Hi,
Welcome,
everybody.
gentlemen, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us here,
Oh,
Mayor
just a
Hunter,
pleasure.
and council members and employees. It's my first presentation in front of council, so I'm pretty excited to be here. Inspector Triance sent her regards. She's very much under the weather and couldn't make it today, and had a couple other things family related, so here I am. Just a little bit about me. I've been in Sea to Sky area policing for 6 years now. I actually grew up in Squamish, went through Howe Sound and all graduated there, so have pretty deep family ties into the area, and very passionate about my community and have no plans of leaving. So when we came back, it was, wow, why did I ever leave? No. You get a better appreciation when you have kids and you can actually enjoy the outdoors with your family in the area. So, and since I've been taking over my sergeant role in Squamish, I've been able to come over and help Paulo out and come visit the island. I can honestly say before taking this job, I haven't never been over here, and I'm missing out. You're great over here. Yeah. Anyway, appreciate you having me to deliver your strat plan report that Paulo has made up and in consultation with you folks. 2 years ago, we've developed a robust plan, strategic plan. It's kind of a roadmap to help better tell our story. I don't think we do that enough. All the good work that our fellow officers are doing in the community and being able to deliver that in an appropriate way. So this is one document that's provided a couple times a year to various councils across our integrated detachment area. I believe there's some new council members, congratulations. We work in a integrated detachment area with Bowen Island, Squamish, Whistler, and Pemberton. And Inspector Triance oversees everybody, and each detachment has their own supervisors and a few constables depending on population size and things like that. So Pemberton and Bowen Island are provincially run municipalities from RCMP's perspective, and they're supported from Squamish and Whistler. Squamish oversees Bowen. So I'm supervising Paulo right now while we have a vacancy in our staff sergeant's bar. So we're just looking to plan or post that and staff that here in the next couple of months. So policing reports is taken in consultation with the stakeholders. It's sharing our planned objectives, our work results of the key initiatives that we develop throughout the plan, and the work product that comes out of all the good initiatives that we set out. Inspector Triance is confident that that the community is being supported by the RCMP, and hopefully you guys feel the same way with the great work that's being done. Paul, would you like to introduce yourself? I know most of you guys know him, but
Okay, so yeah, Paulo Ariega. It will be 4 years for me here on Bowen Island. There's 3 of us, 2 constables and a corporal, and right now Gareth is my direct supervisor out of Sea to Sky Squamish. Yeah, I guess there's gonna be some changes, as you are probably very used to members turning over again and again. Having said that, it's always good to have new visions and see little things that are different that maybe shouldn't be, or vice versa. Yeah, we have a lot of resources at our disposal. Squamish has a lot of those, but overall, we can, at any moment's notice, get Air One here to help us out at Police Dog Unit. Forensics has come here several times. The ERT team can come here and help us out. From victim services to administrative staff, the support out of Squamish. So we're very, very well supported. I mean, something as simple as like my portable is damaged. I just tell E-Division and they said, send it to Squamish and we'll get you a new one. But at the same time, we do rely a lot on Bowen Island agencies to help us out from day to day. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Thanks, Bob. So why do we do a strategic report? As I mentioned before, it's a bit of a roadmap. There's consultation stages, and I believe that you guys attended in January to Squamish.
Show this did, yeah.
Some did, okay, excellent. So to provide input, a tailored approach. We understand that each community has different needs. Like Squamish has different needs than Bowen Island and Pemberton. Different resources are required, and different concerns are addressed throughout the community. So we try to get input from all of our stakeholders and partners, and to provide some tailored initiatives that we can move forward in the next coming years. Just on that, why I'm reporting on it right now, our session is actually ending in March of this year. So while we had that consultation stage in January, we're setting out a new stage for the next few years. We take into account an environmental scan. It takes into the community's priorities, which we try to pair with our national, provincial, and municipal priorities. Hopefully we try to get the plan right and make it align. If not, we can adjust it as we go, so it's pretty fluid and dynamic. If we see a spike in bike thefts, then we can start tailoring the property crime approach to that and employ some different strategies on the island and bring in some resources that we have provincially set up throughout the corridor. So we develop initiatives with our units. There's a work plan, and it also gives us, I keep saying we're referring to a roadmap, gives us direction and members the ability to see something on there that they like and they want to pursue. Everybody has a different flavor and different experiences that they bring. Me personally, I'm not very traffic driven, but I try to be. Some other officers are very traffic driven. So I come from a major crime background, so I have a lot of invest in persons crimes and things like that. So I work towards that throughout my career. Now I manage people and hopefully gives good presentations. We'll see. Performance output can be tailored. So if you scroll down, sorry, I don't know if you guys have this in front of you or not, but so the 2017, this is kind of a first for, just leave it right there, Paul. This is the first I've seen of this. I've always been spoken to about the annual performance plan, the roadmap, but it's never been produced like this. I'll just talk quickly a bit about the pillars, if you will, each category there. Our first pillar was to reduce crime through proactive initiatives and education. Our second pillar was to enhance ability to manage domestic violence. So we had some initiatives. I'll go through each one of these in more detail. The third pillar is reducing risk to vulnerable persons. Our fourth pillar is enhancing road safety through education and proactive enforcement. The fifth pillar is enhancing preparedness to effectively respond. So that's providing some better training to our employees, getting them up to an investigative standard, emergency management, that sort of thing. Pillar 6 is contribute to employee development and leadership and growth. Those two kind of mirror each other. And Pillar 7 was communicate effectively and community engagement, which is part and parcel why we started developing this and presenting to you and the community to provide input into how you guys want the police force to operate and things that you want to see happen. So if you go down, I'll just talk about crime reduction quickly here. This was our first pillar. Dynamic-led policing, it's an intelligence-led policing is kind of the hot topic right now. We're trying to make resources more effective. We're using our crime stats, our analysts. We do have access to a part-time analyst out of headquarters that we can draw upon. She's very busy, but hopefully we can get some stats in time, and she provides, they call them dashboards, so we can see the crime trends going forward, and where we need to sort of move our targets, so to speak. So that's various types of standardized crimes that are reported through StaffCan. That intelligence-led policing is pretty important. Crime reduction can be broken down into 3 main areas. So there's reactive policing, where we answer to the 911 calls. Proactive policing, which we all like to do is go out and meet people and and see what's going on in the community. And the preventative side, so that's the education side, getting into the schools and doing our community events and things like that. To prevent crime, provide education from crime happening in the communities. Proactive intelligence-led policing refers to our prolific offender program that we've started up in Squamish and in the corridor, because we know that 1% of property crime offenders are doing a majority of the crime. Specifically in Squamish, I know our property crime numbers have dropped by about 28% since we've put a couple people in jail. So it just goes to show that we're trying to be more efficient, intelligence-led, and using our tools available to us. We also have crime prevention initiatives happening all through the Sea to Sky. I believe there's one event here with Garage 529. Yep. That's a system that was created by a co-founder of Microsoft. I think his bike got stolen, so he wrote some code, made an app, now it's gone viral. It's a great system that allows sharing of information on social media to say, hey, my bike, this is the color, this is its registration on Garage 529, and it's kind of a social media blitz for registering your bikes, because most bikes are not registered, or people can't find the serial numbers. So there's a large gap there. We brought that over, I think, to open up the new bike park.
Yeah, the new bike.
Yeah.
We have it there.
So it's a great tool to prevent future crimes from happening. And then Bowen Island, Paul, I don't know if you want to speak to the community safe net?
Yeah, simply we partnered up with Community Safety Net. They basically provided books, drug safety, and as you know, they have the fire safety one. We also now have a senior safety and boating safety, but that one I'm just finishing up providing them to grade 6, 7, 8, 9 for IPS. But I don't just provide, I give them like an hour-long talk presentation about drug safety, and they take these books home and they read them with their parents. But it's been really good because it really helps me present them a little bit simpler because I can just follow along. But they've been taken as in like, oh yeah, finally we have a book that we can follow as far as the teachers go. But yeah, every year they update it. So this is the second time that I've got an updated book, which includes fentanyl and whatever the hot topic is. And I'm just going to be meeting up with Sky next month to present them with senior books. So,
Cognizant of time here, so I'll get moving. Our pillar 2 is domestic violence. I own that, or try to steer that pillar for the corridor. So we maintained strong relationships with our partners, worked well with the House on Women's Center. We brought in third-party reporting for sexual assault survivors to report to the Women's Center, and they would report to us if they didn't feel comfortable coming to the police. So we're a pilot project, and we got an MOU put in place, which is awesome, and it's been a pretty big success. So it's just removing those barriers to reporting sexual assaults. So we did some best practices as well. Our victim services worker, Jenna Becker, can't say enough good things about her. She's amazing in what she does. She wrote a grant for the members to be trained in trauma-informed practice. Dr. Lori Haskell was invited to come to provide. She's a psychologist. She teaches on memory recall and victim trauma, and it just provides us a better way to interview survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault and understand why there's maybe some memory loss and gaps in the recording or time lag. So it gives us a better understanding of what trauma is doing to the brain, and we're trying to lead that, and we brought in other officers from some other nearing detachments, and they're blown away by the presentation. It was really well done. So we're trying to lead the way in that area. We're also doing some presentations in the high schools in Squamish with healthy relationships. We're just working with some of the community services to better kind of tailor that and partner together, because we found that we were doing basically the same stuff. So we've come together, and now we're partnering to build a better and robust program. And then our fourth pillar there was to write a business case to obtain a domestic violence sexual assault position, which Squamish has now funded, and we have that person staffed. So that member is going to take about 100 files away from the general duty members, and she'll be able to investigate those and have continuity of those investigations, where a person might come in on the fourth day and might not of the member set, and they're off for another 4 days. So it's hard to transition the continuity of those important pieces. So this domestic violence investigator will take over those investigations and provide a better continuity for survivors. If you want to go down to the third pillar, thanks. So our third pillar is vulnerable persons. We look to build hubs. It's another hot topic about bringing in community partner groups and just providing some continuity pieces there. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with the hub model. It's bringing all the different community partners into a table and round table it. We didn't end up building an adult hub model. We're doing a youth hub model because there was a gap in Squamish. We found that there's some pretty robust focus groups in Squamish, so we didn't end up building upon that hub model. We just ended up linking some of the focus groups together. And in doing so, we're also sitting at a number of different tables throughout the corridor. Sexual assault response roundtable. We hosted 2 fentanyl workshops, brought in Vancouver Coastal Health, Coroner's Office, our members, health, the doctors, BC paramedics, all sat at our roundtable. We generated some good discussion. We followed it up with a second one in Whistler. So that's sort of the stuff that we're trying to lead in the community, some more of the social issues. We also sit on Lower Mainland Homelessness Committee. We send our community police officer, Wendy Shard, and a member down. I think they meet every 2 or 3 months, and just talk about different things that are impacting homelessness, so we can bring them back to our communities. We did a youth mental health roundtable in December, and we just finished a second one to try to bring some more youth resources under the mental health and there's some good things happening in Squamish with child, youth, and mental health under the ministry branch in Squamish right now. Sorry. Increased partnership with the Squamish Nation and partnering with Bowen Island civilian municipal teams focused on creating an emergency shelter program and presentations to the Bowen Island seniors keeping young. Do you want to talk about that?
Oh, that, I already spoke about that, just
Oh, okay.
basically giving a presentation to them, not forgetting that they're there and assisting as much as possible.
We'll go through road safety.
Yeah.
So we're looking to boost impaired driving numbers by 10%. So having the members do intelligence-led policing, go out to the problem areas where there's possibly collisions, and set up roadblocks, prioritize proactive road safety education initiatives, talking to the schools. I think in Bowen Island, there was an increase in the number of violation tickets. I'm probably gonna guess for speeding.
Yes.
And impaired driving related charges were also up in 2018 due to the proactive enforcement. Also, there was partnerships with BICS and ICBC because we know when the time changes and the clocks go back, it becomes darker. So there's the Be Seen at Night initiatives. And I think Paulo rode on some school buses, provided reflectors to the students, and then there's also the pedestrian foot commuters at the ferry terminal too. So those are important initiatives over here to be bright. It's I think everywhere, right? Like you want to be seen, be bright, be visible, because it just it's important for the youth especially to wear some reflective clothing.
We're gonna make sure every year that we partner up with ICBC to give us those reflectors, because they've been kind of a staple here on Bowen. And and the Rotary is great at helping us out. And just to add to the road safety, we're being trained with SFST, which it's basically drug recognition expert as well. We have an intoximeter trained member now as well, which means that he can actually pursue the criminal investigation for drunk driving even further here on island. And it's just continuous learning, and new members might not have training, so we're pretty good. We've done really, really good here, and I think Greg is going to be our next impaired investigator guy.
So the next two pillars kind of go hand in hand, responding effectively. I know Paulo mentioned pipeline and SFST training, and it's just taking the people that are leaving and coming and training up the new set of folks so they're trained up to a standard that we need to meet. There's I know Paulo sits on the Bowen Island Emergency Program Committee. We also have a similar emergency program in Squamish. We've also trained up a number of police officers in ICS 300, Incident Command 300, which is a fairly high level of incident command in the province. It's put on by the JIBC, so they can go out and set up a command post somewhere if there's an emergency need, if there's a landslide or a flood or whatever it might be. We also have a command center in our headquarters called DOC, so we set that up. Probably the most familiar is with the BC wildfires. A lot of policing presence in protecting those evacuation areas. We send a lot of officers up there to help out, and they bring back the valuable experiences they have. I went for the first time last year as an incident commander for a specific area, and it was a phenomenal experience. I gained so much experience dealing with other members in a different area and promoting kind of the RCMP and helping out the folks that are in desperate need up there. So I'll move into employee development because they kind of go hand in hand. Very well in our training. Inspector Trance was looking to host 2 supervisor training days We try to achieve that every year, where all the NCOs gather from all the different detachments and provide on specific training. And we're developing deliver workshop for civilian support staff and presentations in-house by members, subject matters that we have. Some officers are specifically one in Squamish. He trains the stepwise or child interviewing in the province. So we have one in-house like that, and a number of other officers with emergency background, ERT training, that sort of thing, tactical training. And I think Greg is HEPS trained, which is use of force. So we're looking at always doing stuff in-house so we don't have to send people away. And then community engagement. So the strategic report was started within the last year. You guys had some input in July or January this past year. And we're always looking to partner with community events, whether it's BoFest or the Dog Dance, Garage 529 for the bikes park opening. I know Paulo and his crew do a lot of Canada Day and Remembrance Day and Red Surge Duty. Paulo, I saw this photo and I was super impressed by your powerman skills. If you can maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's that's what our priority here is, community engagement. So from that 5 to 9 garage to visiting schools and everything. Now, as you know, Bix is doing the totem pole, and I was very, very flattered that this school was voted as to, you know, what did you want? It was like the carver in the middle, and then the teachers on one side, and they said police on the other. So that's the representative is going to be a police. So very, very touched, and just goes to show how much we're out there, we're trying, and just you know, meeting people and letting them know we're here to help. But yeah, so far the community has been good to us, and so we're trying to be good to them.
Sounds fair.
Yes. So.
And then the last slide here is just a little snapshot of crime statistics. This is actually representative for all detachments in the area. For the calls for service are down by a certain percentage. So I can't explain that for any reason, but hopefully crime is going down. Yeah, if there's anything specific that you'd like to talk, I mean, the one that stands out is violent crimes. In 2017, you had 24, and 2018, you had 17. So it's down quite a bit. But that's being out there, being visible in the community, and providing better resourcing for the events that you guys have here and stuff. So.
Yeah, that's great. Does that conclude your presentation?
It sure does, yes.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
That's a great update. And I think the next time we do this, we should have a little bit more time.
Yeah, sorry, I went over.
No, we were already over, but we just have to give you more time.
No problem.
Because it's very important stuff. I'd like to thank you for all you do in the community, Paulo. You know, we do respect and we love our RCMP here. And there's one thing, a couple of things I might add. A, the crime stats are good. They're down, hey, 10%, 11%, something like that.
Yeah.
That's not something that you can deny. And also, the community foundation up here, the Bowen Island Foundation, is starting a youth at risk program, which is going to be quite extensive. And I wonder if we couldn't communicate with you about what you did up in Squamish.
Yeah, for
Along
sure.
the same lines.
Yeah.
So I think we'll just pass that along. And see
Yeah, we have a dedicated youth officer that's
Yeah.
heading up that hub model.
Yeah.
And also we've created an outreach team in Squamish
Perfect.
over this past year and staff that. They look after the youth officer, municipal traffic, victim services, community policing. I'm probably missing one somewhere. And domestic violence.
Okay.
Yeah, so that they've hubbed that. I used to look after all of those, but that was,
It's all up now.
it's a lot. So yeah, so they've created an outreach team, so they sit at all these partnership tables, and yeah, we'd be happy to come out and share what we've kind of learned through the growing pains.
It's great. It's great to see the RCMP out there. It's good to have communication. It's good to have community involvement in all the little different aspects and stuff like that, because they are, especially on Bowen Island, part of the community. There's no question about that. Anybody have any questions? Allison?
Just under the property crimes, it says theft under and theft Theft from auto, and then it says theft under mischief over mischief under. I just wondered what,
So when we
Theft
refer
under
to
what?
those, it's theft over $5,000.
okay,
It relates to the criminal code charges, so,
Okay.
and then there's theft under, same with mischief.
Rob?
Yeah, thanks a lot for your presentation, and Paul, thanks for the tour you gave a lot of councillors. It's nice to have that connection to the RCMP, to know what you guys are doing from our perspective. One of the things I was, and I'm a big traffic guy actually, and I actually really appreciate the work that the RCMP have done traditionally on island around traffic. Like, they've actually held a pretty, had a big presence there. And I think especially on our island where we don't have sidewalks, where kids are riding bikes on the street and we're walking on the street, there's no street lights, like keeping that speed limit low, I think is so important. It's probably the biggest safety benefit the police can provide our community, in my opinion. So I appreciate that work, because it's not popular sometimes giving somebody a speeding ticket or busting somebody that you know for drinking.
There's lots of studies out there showing like every 10% or 10-kilometer increases the fatality factor.
Huge, yeah, I totally agree. So I hope the next officer will bring that tradition from the RCMP to Bowen Island. Maybe this is a better question for Paulo. Just on the impaired driving charges, that's the biggest drop actually, from 30 to 15. What do you think?
I think it's people that might have been doing it for a long time, finally got caught, and then when they get caught, they change their behavior, because it is expensive.
Yeah.
And to try to get that again, I mean, you could get your car impounded for 30 days the first time you blow a fail, but the next time you blow a fail, like, you probably might not get your car back. So the punishment has been so harsh that those repeat offenders in the past that have never been caught, those people that have been doing it, have been caught, and now that they're not going to do it again. Last year we changed a lot, like we really did a lot of after hours roadblocks. And we've tried them again this year, but it's more like, nobody's coming along because they can't afford to, or because their significant other then said, finally, you got caught. Like, it's true. It's a small town. It's, like everybody might know somebody who might have got done for impaired. And so still, what morning is it now, 17, did you say? Yeah,
30 to
15.
15.
15. I mean, that's a lot for this community, but 30, yeah, that was pretty extensive. I mean, it's not all being criminally charged. A lot of them is administrative, which is, again, pocketbook and driving, their driver's license getting revoked by the BC driver's license people,
ICBC.
motor vehicle branch.
Yeah.
Right, so, yeah, it does make sense to me. As new islanders come, they might have different agendas and we might see less. But it always spikes up in the summer and around holidays.
One more quick question for Gary. On the coordinating of call-outs from 911, for instance, so one of my concerns with ambulance, fire, police have been that we're sometimes a whole bunch of different services get called out to one call when it should have maybe just been police or just fire or just ambulance. Do you meet with fire and ambulance to coordinate the 911 call-outs and whatnot?
That would be, well, we're all housed out of Ecom. So Ecom, you call 911, it's going to Vancouver, to that
The
hub.
boundary there, I guess.
Yeah, it's going to that hub, and then it's up to whoever calls. They ask police, fire, ambulance, whatever the need is. So the person who calls might ask for, I need an ambulance, when in fact they actually might need police, or the ambulance would call the police officer if there's a safety concern. And vice versa, like the fire, if they go to an accident for a call out, they might call us for road control or whatnot, sort of thing. Is that?
Yeah, in your opinion, do you think it's working smoothly? Because my perception is it's not working smoothly. So anything the municipality can do to encourage that running smoothly, because it's very expensive, for instance, to send out a whole fire truck, for instance,
For sure,
let's say an epileptic or a seizure or something, and vice versa with crime stuff. So.
Right. Yeah. Like I know when we go, we would triage. Like we're not going to call out an ambulance just in case. It's just if there's a need there, a medical need for the ambulance to be called. I can't speak for when a person calls 911 and might misconstrue what they need or whatnot, but, yeah, it's something to talk about further for sure.
Ecom would be a good place to start, get somebody from there to answer that, because they're literally in the same room.
Yeah, they all sit in the same, they're like hub,
Okay.
so they're like, you know, hey, I got a call on Bowen Island for this, and they talk together in their little pit, because they're all kind of hubbed together. So yeah, if there's a major emergency going on, they're all, stuff's lighting up, and they're all talking to each other, yelling at each other. If you haven't been for a tour, I'm sure we could set
I'd love
one
to
up.
see that side.
Yeah.
I've seen the north face.
Yeah, it's phenomenal, like the way they work, it's kind of like Las Vegas in there, everything's lighting up and bing, 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 and you're just like, how did it, this is
Yeah.
very impressive of how you guys function, so we could probably set that up for sure.
That'd be great.
So, I think that'll be the last one, thank you.
Okay, I'm reading here, or you said that this session ends in March, and I'm thinking about, okay, so you've got all this experience, and are you noticing patterns or trends that you might want to alert us to, changes over the years, speeding patterns? Like we're seeing.
Are you talking about like maybe like a 5-year trend of like patterns and things like that?
Is there
Yeah.
more speeding in the summer? Is there more speeding, for example, among visitors to the island than people who live here? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anything that comes to mind?
For sure, kind of hard to, I think locally they could probably answer that on like a superficial level. Hard to really capture that data of like, are you local and getting a speeding ticket
Yeah.
versus not? We don't really capture that data,
Okay.
but yeah, we can definitely look at like, there's like that core group of crime trends, basically what you're looking at on that last sheet.
Yeah.
And then our analysts can do like a 5-year plan of like the past 5 years, seeing what's popping up and that's what we look at when we do our upcoming plans for the next couple years. We take those into consideration, try to build some strategies in for the initiatives tailored to Bowen Island, tailored to Squamish.
Great, so we can consult, if we're looking for information, we can ask you to dig into the reports.
100%.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can almost time it every 20 minutes before the ferry leaves. There you go.
Surprise.
That's the constant.
Yes, definitely.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, that's been extraordinarily informative.
Thank you,
And,
everybody.
We look forward to another meeting in the not too distant future.
Excellent. Yeah, I plan to be over here a lot more
Should
often.
go more often, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Okay, so we're gonna move on to business arising from the minutes, 5.1. They are under reconsideration of council resolution 19-85. That was the one that was,
Hope this needs to lay a process here.
oh,
Just a quick minute before we get started. There is some complexity to this, in just process-wise. It's kind of a two-part process that prior to proceeding, we need to vote on the motion to reconsider as it is in the agenda. And then after that, we would need to have a vote on the motion that was provided on February 19th. And at that time, if it goes ahead, we can continue and amend it. And if not, then it's dead in the water, so to speak. But that's just the process moving forward.
So this 5.1 A, is that the original motion that we would then, I'm not quite sure what 5.1 A is.
It's just the same as what is on the agenda. It is what would need to be voted on.
So just, okay.
So the first resolution, just to clarify what Hope's saying, is does council, the mayor has a right to bring a resolution
It has to
forward
think
to
about it, yeah.
reconsider, but then council votes on whether or not they wish to reconsider that motion. That's the first vote.
And if that motion passes,
Then the original motion comes back on the table,
can we either say we want to defeat it or amend it or whatever?
adopt it.
That's correct. Sorry to confuse.
And then these little red things that are here on the agenda?
Those are just two
Reconsider.
additional motions that are for consideration of council.
Whether or not we reconsider.
I know those are just, those are two new motions
Those are
on the
additional
table.
motions.
Additional, so the
Yeah.
reconsideration, those would get considered whether.
Irrespective, yeah.
Irrespective.
Just clarity question. So this would be, the first vote will be whether to reconsider the motion that the last council had made.
No, that this council made at the February 19th meeting.
Okay.
So I can read it for you if you like.
Yeah.
The council reconsider resolution 19-85 as follows. That council pause the direction to staff to enter into lease agreements with the Bowen Island Health Center Foundation, resolution 18-159, and Bowen Island Resilient Community Housing, resolution number 18-467, for up to a 30-day period in order for the Mayor's Standing Committee on the Community Lands to report back to council, and that council reaffirms its commitment to provide leased community lands to the Bowen Island Health Center Foundation and the Bowen Island Resilient Community Housing.
I'll move that.
Okay,
I'll second it.
Thank you.
I do have a question. In going, if this were to be rescinded, we don't have in front of us the original motion, do we?
19-85,
yeah.
that's in the package, that's why I was asking if we needed.
What's in the
Do you mean-
package is not the original motion.
Well, the original motion is, the original, not the one that was, this is what we passed at the last February
Yes,
19th.
I realize that, but we don't have in front of us the original motion.
No, I believe the only difference was, the significant difference was 30 to 90 days.
That's correct.
But,
And removing all the
Yeah.
other ads.
So
Which
that's,
meeting
it's
was
the
that?
duration.
February 19th.
Yeah.
No, it's, those are also on 3.1, the minutes.
Yeah.
Now, can we debate whether or not,
well, I think first the mayor needs
Well,
to describe why.
And the reason I'm bringing this, back is because we finally got together with the Mayor's Standing Committee, which is a select committee of community involvement, community people who we thought would be very good on this committee, plus 3 members of council and staff. So it's a group of about 9 of us, and it's a little bit hard to get together. Anyway, to make a long story short, those resolutions that was passed, the 30-day resolution that was passed on February the 19th, was totally insufficient to get the job done. We've managed to have one meeting, which turned into a bit of a disaster because we were pressured to try to do something before that 30 days eliminated. Now we've got half the people going on holidays, and we can't get the people together. So all I'm saying is it was totally impractical in 30 days. You can't get anything done in 30 days. I'd like to move it back to 90 days. And, but having said that, it's a max of 90 days, and we will get it done as soon as we can. I'd like to say that we've changed a few things here. Michael, it's still not resolved because it was pulled from the consent agenda, but Michael, we were hoping that Michael could be a liaison between the health organization and the committee, the Mayor's Standing Committee, so that we can build a relationship and get this straightened out. And we're not that far off in any stretch of the imagination. We've got a lot of work to do on the community lands, but we're going to prioritize both these projects so that we can get them on their way. And but we cannot do it in 30 days. 60 days, I don't know. But so I'm asking for 90 days, and we'll just do it as quickly as we can. Whether it's 90 days or 2 years, we're going to get it done in the same amount of time. So I'd like to have 90 days, and that's why I'm asking council to reconsider this, so we can actually get down and get the work done and get it finished. Thank you. Maureen.
Yeah, I'd like to argue against it. And the reason I'd like to argue against it is that reducing the amount of time that was stated in the original resolution was at my amendment, and it was a quite deliberate effort to light a fire under a committee that otherwise would have taken a significant amount of time to raise the issues that it managed to raise in the space of about 21 days. The issues had to do with concerns around whether there was openness on the part of the of Birch and the health center to considering other alternative locations. And it's become clear that at least on the part of Birch, they are open to considering an alternative. The health center doesn't appear to be open to considering an alternative, but perhaps they might have to. I think that the requirement that the committee report back to council within 30 days has effectively been met by the statement that you just made, that the committee had difficulty making a decision because, in part, it wasn't given sufficient direction as to what it was they were to do. And that's where the two recommendations that follow this, this reconsideration actually make some sense. The difficulty that the Mayor's Standing Committee had was not so much that it was spiraling around, but that it needed to know whether it had the latitude to speak with those two groups about the alternatives. It didn't feel it had that authority. And what came out of the meeting was a request to provide that clarification. Could the Mayor's Standing Committee have the latitude to have those conversations with the two bodies with the permission of council? Because we didn't want to be doing that without getting permission from council. And there also was no discussion in the Mayor's Standing Committee about Councillor Kale serving as a liaison to the Standing Committee on behalf of the Health Centre. That simply did not come up in meeting.
That is correct. Thank you, Maureen.
So I will be voting in opposition to rescinding this resolution. I think 30 days served its function. And if we want to put another time constraint on, we can revise the subsequent recommendations and deal with timelines there. But we've done our 30 days.
So,
I'm going to speak in support of reconsidering the resolution, of your motion to reconsider it. Partly because I'm hearing that you've had one meeting and you've made some progress, but it's impractical to do it all. And I'm remembering that this motion that we passed was at the late. It was late after a very lively meeting, and I think I think people making hasty decisions because of the time, and I think it merits reconsideration, and especially taking the long view, and so I'm voting in favor of reconsidering.
anybody else? Rob?
Yeah. First off, a bit of a tough decision for me because A, I abstained from the vote to have even the Mayor's Standing Committee going. And part of it was because, you know, not having looked at all these projects together as one cohesive whole, taking them silo by silo, I think is a really big problem as Councillor Fass has looking into the future. So I do think, I argued that at the Fire Hall meeting, we need to look at this together as a grouping, and I want to move forward for that. I want to see that Lot 3, especially at the end of the day, look like what I think the community wants, which is multiple use on that land. And if it takes a bit more time, I'm willing to go with that. I want this moved forward though, and I also want to make very sure that the players are going to be in the room, are going to have input in this procedure, and hopefully we can get together and get some cohesive things. So we're not changing anything now. Now we're just voting to reconsider, and then we can talk a bit more about that. So
David?
Gary, I'd like to speak to this very briefly.
Okay.
So I would support reconsideration for the reasons that Rob and Sue Ellen have said, and I would also support the other recommendations that are right below it about moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
So
Allison?
just to be clear again, if this motion passes, we will then have a debate on whether to vote again on that motion as to whether, and everybody will then vote yea or nay on that motion. All this motion we're voting on right now is whether we're going to have a second vote to pass or adopt this motion that's here.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm totally in favor of not reconsidering these.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, I'll ask the question, who is in favor of reconsidering this?
And I'm in favor.
Thank you, David. Opposition? Opposed? Maureen? Allison? Thank you, and it passes. Reconsideration is approved, and,
Now you put your motion on the table again.
which is what, this one here?
The council reconsider, the council process.
No, okay,
So, yeah,
Except with the number that you wanted.
okay.
And,
We can put this, take this 30 in here. So the recommendation is that council reconsider
No,
resolution.
take the top bit out.
Huh? Okay.
that council policy.
The council positive direction of staff to enter into lease agreements with Bowen Island Health Center Foundation. That's resolution number 18-159, and Bowen Island Resilient Community Housing, resolution 18-467, for up to 90-day period in order for the Mayor's Standing Committee on the Community Lands to report back to council, and that council reaffirms its commitment to provide leased community lands to the Bowen Island Health Center and the Bowen Island Resilient Community Housing.
I'll second that.
Okay?
I'd like to ask that it be severed into two separate motions, which I should have done in the first place.
Okay.
Then I can vote in favor of reaffirming and against the first one.
So you want to split it at, report back to council?
No,
At the,
there's two acts,
At
so
the
each one of them
end.
is separate.
No, that's what I meant, yeah, report back to council.
So you're splitting Birch with the health center, is that
No,
what's
I'm
going on?
splitting this motion first, and this is the second.
so the first motion will be that council positive direction to staff to enter into lease agreements with the Healthcare Foundation and Birch for up to a 90-day period in order for the Mayor's Standing Committee on the Community Lands to report back to council.
Okay, I will move that. It hasn't been moved.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Second, Sue Ellen. And any further discussion? Michael?
I certainly will support it, but I just want to ask, because I was listening to the points Councillor Nicholson made, and I believed it was pivoting around the ability for this committee to, I'm sorry, I'm going to ask her to repeat it in her own words, if you wouldn't mind, because I just want to major on the point that you made.
The point that I made is reflected in the subsequent recommendations, that the committee felt constrained in terms of discussing with the Bowen Island Health Center Foundation and the Bowen Island Resilient Community Housing. Some of the committee members took the initiative to have conversations that they quite honestly weren't authorized to have, and council might not have supported, and council might have supported. But the fact was that we did not have direction from council to enter into discussions with those two groups to change what was the current understanding. And it did not make sense to the committee to proceed any further without council being aware that that would be part of the discussion of the Mayor's Standing Committee on Community Lands. It wouldn't make any sense for us to come back with recommendations, having come up with them in complete absence of conversation with the two major players involved on Lot 3.
So to continue my question, all I'm asking, I support this, and I totally support it. What I'm asking, and I hope it's sufficient, is that the points raised by council can be taken into account in terms of the practical working of the committee. And I'm not asking this, we open a paper chase here, but that I think there's some very common sense points, and I'm just saying, we heard it, and I hope that it's going to be part of the ongoing process. Because I would support the points that she made in this regard, because it just seems common sense. So, but I do support this, and certainly going to vote for this.
Okay, any other discussion on this, President?
Could I just provide a little bit of clarity here? The first recommendation needs to be, if this is the will of council to pursue this, what staff need is direction to do this pause in the lease agreements. The second set of recommendations will inform the mandate of the committee.
Correct.
And how, I
Correct.
just wanted to
Yeah.
clarify that.
Everybody understand that? That they'll actually
And then
carry
the
on
second part of
these
the first one
Reaffirms.
reaffirms its commitment to provide the leased land, just so people know.
Any further discussion on this part of it? Okay, I'll ask a question, all in favor?
In favor?
Thank you. And opposed? Okay. Councilors Morris and Nicholson. Someone want to read the second part of it?
I move that council reaffirms its commitment to provide leased community lands to the Bowen Island Health Center Foundation and Bowen Island Resilient Community Housing.
I'll second.
Thank you. And further discussion here?
I'd like to move an amendment to that motion.
Okay.
That we insert at the end of the sentence, at a nominal rate. Which was commitments we made in the previous resolution.
I will second that. Does that need a second?
Yes.
I mean, those resolutions stand, the council resolutions stand for the nominal rate, that hasn't changed.
Well, I'm hearing voices from other people that are saying they shouldn't get it for nothing, so I would like to reaffirm that council is supportive of providing land at a nominal rate.
I think that amendment would provide clarity to the mayor's standing committee as well.
My question is for staff. Can staff confirm that both were at the nominal rate?
Yes, that was the direction we received last September, and, yes.
Great, thank you. Just wanted that confirmed to make sure that we weren't
Thank you.
stepping into something else.
Okay, so,
You're calling a vote on the amendment.
yeah, any discussion on the amendment?
Just that I support it, as long as it's what we've said before, and if it offers support to the process of the mayor's standing committee and to the groups who might be feeling uncertain.
Okay. Anybody else? David?
If I'm understanding, so Allison's amendment is just at a nominal rate, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'll ask a question. All in favor of the amendment? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm in
David?
favor, yeah.
Thank you. And so we'll have to go back and, do we have to go back and reread this? Or just ask?
Yes, you do, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, with the amendment.
So the council reaffirms its commitment to provide leased community lands to the Bowen Island Health Center Foundation and the Bowen Island Resilient Community Housing at a nominal rate.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion? No? Okay, all in favor?
In favor?
Okay, that's unanimous, thank you. Now, there's two other recommendations which we'll talk to Councillor Nicholson's advice here, which is correct, because the committee needs to have the will of council to talk to these two different organizations. So the one recommendation that the Mayor's Standing Committee on Community Lands be authorized to revisit the assignment of land for the Bowen Island Health Center Foundation, report back to council within 90 days. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, last question, all in favor?
In favor?
Thank you. Opposed? Okay, Councilor Morris opposed. Second recommendation is that the Mayor's Standing Committee on Community Lands be authorized to revisit the assignment of land for the Bowen Island Resilient Community Housing Foundation and report back to council within 90 days.
I'll second.
Thanks,
Oh,
Luella.
okay.
Further discussion?
Take it, Michael. Yes.
Yeah, I'll ask a question. All in favor?
In favor?
Okay, opposed? Okay, Councilor Morrison, opposition. All right, so both those resolutions pass. Yes.
I wonder, this is just the two groups that we've already been talking about, and I just wonder if it would be valuable to the committee to have a resolution that they could talk to other organizations as well, such as, would it?
Yes.
Because there are other organizations that might, or businesses, or anybody who might want to be part of that, so I would like to move that the Mayor's Standing Committee on Community Lands be authorized to revisit the assignment, no. What would it be? that the mayor's standing committee on community lands be authorized
Visit.
to
To speak with
speak with
stakeholders.
stakeholders, with other
Yeah.
potential stakeholders. Period.
How does that look?
I'll second that.
Engage?
With. Oh,
Engage.
Engage with, yeah.
Okay,
Okay, and you got a second on that, David?
Yeah, I'll second it, yeah.
Further discussion on that? That's a great idea.
Can we just hear what Hope's got written down?
Yes?
That the mayor's standing committee on community lands be authorized to engage with potential stakeholders with regards to the community lands.
with other potential stakeholders?
With potential stakeholders.
With
It doesn't
interest,
reference
yeah.
those to any resolutions.
Okay, and it is the mayor's standing committee on community lands, so does it have to be about community lands? You added that,
There's other stakeholders, sure.
Okay.
Period there.
okay,
I'm happy with that.
thank you.
Any further discussion?
Yep.
Yes,
If
Rob?
I may ask the mayor for a question, being the chair of the
Absolutely.
committee? Yeah,
Sure.
thanks. And I think this could be a real positive way forward, because now we can maybe loop in some Cove, developers and whatnot together and try to get this vision of multi-use in the Cove. I want to make sure 90 days is going to give us enough time to do a good job on this, and I think this could actually speed everything up here if we can get the partners together in one room, working together, and hopefully coordinating some of the finances together. Okay,
Agreed? No,
you think 90 days is going to give us enough time to do that?
I'm very hopeful, and we have to be driven on this thing.
So,
And,
so for clarification, I'm taking this amendment to mean we can talk with, the standing committee can talk with stakeholders who would be interested in other sites on the community lands, not just the sites that Birch and
correct?
the health center might want,
Correct.
but
It's all
for
the
any
community
of the
lands.
communities.
All the community lands.
So Hope, will you please read the motion again?
That the mayor's standing committee on community lands be authorized to engage with potential stakeholders.
Yes, that's broad. I think that encompasses Councillor Morse's concern.
I'd rather that than have it start bitting pieces out and then having to write it in lengthy form. I think it's well expressed in simple and good English.
Is there any value in saying adjacent property owners?
Well, that
No,
might not
me
be.
either.
Might not be.
No, I'm not worried about limiting the stakeholders, I was worried about limiting the stakeholders to only people that would be interested in the same lands that Birch and
No,
trying to ante.
it's a totally different resolution.
No, I was thinking of both potential stakeholders and adjacent property owners.
I think they could both be under that same umbrella.
The stakeholder.
Okay, as
They
long
may
as
be a
that's
stakeholder.
understood.
They may
Yeah,
be
I would
a
consider
stakeholder.
As long as that's understood.
I would like to add the words who are interested in the community lands to that. We don't just want anybody. So I don't like taking community lands out of there. There's lots of people who think they're stakeholders, but they're not interested in developing the community lands.
But there may be partnerships or synergies that, this is why adjacent might be a good thing.
Yeah, but I guess my concern is, now that we've taken the words community lands out,
It's in the name of the committee.
yeah, but that you're gonna get this, it's not stakeholders who are interested in the community land. For the, stakeholders, are defining stakeholders to mean people who actually want to do something on those lands, versus a stakeholder who's the person who lives across the street and doesn't think anything should be done with it.
Go ahead, Rob.
I just want to echo Councillor Kale's comment of keeping this as broad as possible, not putting any things in here. I think we need to have all options on the table and just keep it simple and let this committee do the work and see if we can have some, cohesion between the different projects we got going here and just leave it at that. And hopefully 90 days will get us there. It's going to be a hell of a lot of work, but it's important, and I don't want to put any sort of little stipulations out. Let's have a clean go at this. And my criticism about having the fire hall in this as well in the past was along that line. Let's look at everything we were wanting to do here. Let's look at all of our lands and let's just figure it out. So.
That's a good point, and it does, what it does is it opens up the entire envelope there and brings everybody in that's involved, and that's what we wanna do. And the sooner we bring all these people together, the sooner we can straighten this out and get it back on the road again. Any further discussion? Take a vote, all in favor?
In favor?
Thank you, David. Opposed?
You haven't clarified it enough.
Okay. Then the resolution passes. Okay, so we'll move on to 5.2. Emma.
Just using the restroom.
No, we should.
Then also, it looks good too.
Please make this simple for us, okay, Emma?
The site visit.
Yeah. Well, it's 3:30, right? The next thing to avail, it was formed, anyway. I'm gonna pop over there.
Doing their best. Eddie, this was so much fun. I feel we should do it all again and
Yeah, I think they should. Can I still speak? Wow. Yeah. Order. Emma.
Here. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Staff is bringing back rezoning application RZ01 2017 for 730 Buchanan Road. This application was brought to the last council meeting for consideration of first reading, and council had several concerns, and staff is bringing this back to address those concerns. And as a refresher, this property is located mid-island, just off Buchanan Road there. It is currently zoned industrial commercial IC variation A. And the remainder of the property is mostly under a mines permit. The IC zone allows for a number of industrial commercial uses. The current activities on the site mainly pertain to storage and sale of gravel. The applicant proposes to add to these uses impound facility, temporary storage and sorting of solid waste, and processing of green waste. Some of council's comments from the last meeting were chiefly to have a more defined site plan and revisions to some of the proposed definitions. The proposed amendment is to zone the area from IC to IM, industrial medium, variation A, and that would be with the amendment of adding impound facility to this zone. And the variation would be to allow for continued sale of gravel, as well as welding, and not permitting cottage industry, It would also restrict transfer station and compost facility use to green waste only, and recycling depot use would be restricted to scrap metal. Additional definitions will also be proposed for this amendment, including one for green waste, and this is based on the definition used by Metro Vancouver. Definition also provided for scrap metal, and the previous definition, manufacturing of wood products, is replaced with the term milling, shaping, and finishing of wood, and the definition is revised to reflect a more light industrial use. The applicant has provided a more defined site plan. Kind of hard to make out on the screen here, but in the report it should be more legible. Each of the uses show an estimated area, and the main proposed uses would be impound facility in this area and proposed transfer station and compost facility below it. The road would be reconfigured to go along the eastern lot line. Those are the main concerns that council had from the previous meeting, and if council is satisfied with the information provided, staff recommends that council give first reading to this bylaw numbers 478, so that we could bring back some public comment and technical findings for council to consider second reading.
All right, discussion. Maureen?
I really like the work you've done with, on the definitions. I think that the restrictions work for me. The one question I had that was remaining had to do with the hours of operation, and they're specified as being 8 to 4. And it didn't say whether there was a weekday restriction or whether it was restricted to a couple of days a week. So I think that that might be something to look at again. I understand from Eddie that you know, 1 or 2 or 3 days a week might be sufficient for what he had in mind.
I'm impressed by the layout that I see on the site plan from our most enjoyable trip there this afternoon in the cold and the wet. However, I'm glad we did, because this plan to me makes a great deal more sense now I've seen it. And given the point that Councillor Nicholson has just made on times and hours, I'm perfectly happy personally to see this application proceed, and I have no further questions personally.
Anybody else? So,
I'm happy to speak in support of this first reading. I think it's a ongoing project over the years, and I think it's good to be making progress. I like the idea of being a self-sufficient community in terms of handling our green waste and having, you know, anyway, I think it's good. I have interests about the time and the noise factors that we've heard about from community members, and some other issues, like some of the other letters that we've had, but I think giving it first reading puts it on the table and allows those issues to be addressed, which are, some of them are current issues, so it'd be good to address them, and so I'll be speaking in support.
thank you. Anybody else? Allison?
So I guess it's more the, some of the council refer to the APC, Environment and Climate Action, Metro Vancouver, Ministry of Energy, Mines, and the Altus. I was wondering about the Community Economic Development Committee.
EDC?
Yeah. And then there will be signage to show that there's will the applicant be required to post a sign saying there's a rezoning process going on?
Yes.
And can we require him to post that sign at the corner of Adams and Buchanan Road? So it's visible to
Put it on.
Just right down the main intersection, yeah.
On the main road, because the neighbors on Adams Road who are concerned about the noise won't know unless the sign's visible.
I think we need to discuss with the superintendent of public works for road right of way usage.
I think that'll be okay.
Okay. See, it was a-
There's a nice sort of corner right there you can put it on that isn't gonna block anything. And, and I'm assuming that we had some wording in one of our other rezonings that the applicant had to work with, that they had to host it, but they had to organize it in concert with the municipal planning staff.
Yeah.
So the council direct the applicant to host a neighborhood consultation, public open house, arranged in consultation with municipal planning department. I think, and I'm assuming that that open house would be hosted at the site,
Yes.
Probably, yeah.
so that's not specified in there.
Doesn't have to be.
I think it should be. The council direct the applicant to host neighborhood consultation and public open house at the site for the application and in consultation with the municipal planning staff. And is the plan to have the section 19 covenant and the draft words and services agreement ready before the next reading comes forth? Or at least the list of what would be in it? I'm having trouble, Councilor Nicholson found reference to hours of operation, but I seem to have missed that.
It's page 3. Of the bylaw.
Oh, there, it's right in the bylaw, I was thinking that was gonna be in the covenant. And then I wondered, in your new definition of milling, shaping, and finishing of wood, you're talking about premises. Does premises it can be outside versus in a building, right? I don't know what the planning definition of premises is. Because a portable sawmill is usually outside, not necessarily inside.
It's, premises is not defined in the land use bylaw, but I would say the industry standard.
Standard planning use definition
Yeah, it
is
doesn't
just
restrict it
a
to
piece
inside
of-
or outside.
Okay. But you've got in here, but does not include paper or pulp manufacturing. And that just struck me as really odd, because pulp, it just seemed like too big a definition that we would never, ever have a pulp manufacturing. I mean, how small can you do
You wouldn't think so.
pulp except there are some craft people who do make,
That's what Eddie wants.
there are small, craft notebooks and things like that. So I was curious as to why that was in there. Quite happy to have chipping and wood.
I hope that you got those changes and Allison's.
There was one, maybe two, so that the open house and neighborhood consultation be arranged in consultation with planning staff. And there was a mention of it being on site.
Yeah, so public open house at the site.
Oh, and the referral to the EDC, or Community Economic Development Committee.
Yeah, and Sue Ellen?
Two things. One of them is, I wonder if you would get more public attendance if you held it in a room where you could display maps and things like that, and it was, there were lights to turn on, and it could be after work for people, and
Was it snowing?
easier to talk, and there weren't big machines moving around. Second thing, so that's why I support leaving it open as to what the group feels will get more public out to consult. The second thing is, I was interested in having this referred to the Parks, Trails, and Greenways Advisory Committee because of the big informal trail that runs through the back corner, but I don't see the word trails in here, and I don't know whether there would be a reason to refer it to that committee. Is that going to be part of this project?
A trail?
Yeah.
No.
Because this is just that small area at the front, right? Thank you.
Yeah, the application doesn't include a trail offer.
Thank you, that's fine.
But I guess that's a good question, should it? If there's a formal board else there already. We have done rezonings in the past where if it's not possible to dedicate the trail at the time of rezoning, you get a covenant that when certain things happen, it will be dedicated. So,
Staff could discuss such an agreement, the applicant. This was brought up at the last meeting. The current location of the trail is under the mines permit area.
It's up
It's not
across the
allowed.
top of the property.
Yeah.
Okay.
but that means it can't be put in now, it's under the mines permit. but
Yes.
There could be a covenant that once the mine permit ceases, the trail goes in.
Yeah, if it ever ceases, I don't know what the timing is on it.
I think it'd be worth staff investigating.
Yeah.
Yeah,
On the side.
I'll formally request that staff investigate the options of a trail dedication at some point.
Some future plan, yeah.
But I don't think it needs to be referred to the committee at this point. Thank you.
Rob?
Yeah, I just want to second the comment from Councillor Fast on the open house, and I think we should leave that up to staff. I don't want to micromanage that. I think wherever they think we're going to get the most people and the best conversations happening, I think they're qualified to make that decision. So.
All right, so
You want me to read it?
I think I hope to read it because there's significant changes in it. And I just my comment is there's quite a bit of due diligence to be done by Mr. Weismuller before this thing happens, and it is only first reading. There's going to be a lot of input come back and that sort of thing, and we got to make sure that the proponent is comfortable with it and we're comfortable with it, and let's get it going anyway and see where it ends up.
So that was my question. When do those noise impact and transportation impact studies are going to be required to be done? What stage?
Well,
Staff is recommending before it comes back to second reading.
Okay.
before, sorry?
Before it comes back to second reading.
Yeah, okay, good. Excellent. Should we put that in anywhere or not? Well, you can just tell the proponent that's when it's gotta be done. Okay, Hope, can you read that back with the changes and see how it looks?
That bylaw number 478, 2019, cited as Bowen Island Municipality Land Use Bylaw number 57, 2002, Amendment Bylaw number 478, 2018, be read a first time. That council refer bylaw number 478, 2019 to the Advisory Planning Commission, Environment and Climate Action Advisory Committee, Community Economic Development Committee, Metro Vancouver, Ministry of Energy, Mines and Petroleum Resources, and the Islands Trust. That council direct the applicant to host a neighborhood consultation and a public open house for application RZ01-2017 to be arranged in consultation with planning staff. That council direct staff, to draft a section 219 covenant for conditions of use. That council direct staff to draft a works and services agreement for any needed improvements. And that council direct staff to report back with the results of the referral of the application.
Just,
All right, just, one typo there.
and the second line, it says bylaw number 478, 2018, shouldn't that be 19?
Yeah,
Sure.
That's correct.
Thank you.
yeah.
Okay, any further discussion?
Well, then why is it RZ01-2017 in the heading?
That's when our application came in.
That's,
Oh.
yeah.
But the bylaw
Yeah.
should be.
So I'll move that.
Thank you.
And I'll second.
Second it, Michael. Any further discussion? Okay, David, you all right?
Yep, I'm fine
Okay.
with this, the changes.
Any further, no further discussion? I'll ask a question. All in favor?
In favor.
Thank you, that's unanimous. We'll move along with that one.
Can I just one clarification? The draft of the 219 covenant and the works and services agreement was prior to second reading as well?
Yes.
Okay, staff report, 6.1. Emma, here you are, back again. 510 Smugglers Cove Road.
Yes, bringing a development variance permit application for introduction. Application number DBP 05, 2018, 510 Smugglers Cove Road, located on the north shore of the island in Hood Point West neighborhood. It's this property highlighted here. Excuse me, sorry. Might be hard to make out the contour lines on this property, but the property is quite steep, sloping towards the water. And there's a steep cliff actually right along the waterfront. The waterfront is accessed from the house via a series of fairly steep stairways, as you can see here. And the current owner is wanting to replace these stairways with a tramway. She has joint issues and cannot actually use the stairs. But because of topography, topography of the site, the only viable location for a tramway is right along the eastern lot line, and it is completely within the side setback and partially within the sea setback. So to enable this tramway, the applicant is requesting a reduction in the sea setback from 30 meters to 7.3 meters, and a reduction in the side setback from 7.5 meters to 0.15 meters. This is an elevation of the proposed tramway. It will go directly from the top of the lot to the water, with an elevation gain of approximately 40 meters. Because of the uneven terrain, you will see that the tramway structure sits 4 to 5 meters above grade in quite a few spots. Here are some photos of examples of a similar tramway installed on other sites. It is an open track design, and the tram itself is a cube-shaped tram that's mostly transparent. The main reasons the applicant has cited for this variance is safety and accessibility, mainly compared to stairways. I don't have any studies regarding this comparison, but this is the reason given by the applicant. It does seem to be more accessible than stairways for people with mobility issues. The other reason cited is environmental impacts. The tramway with the open track design has much fewer anchor points to the ground and also puts less shade on the vegetation and overall has less of an environmental impact. And the reason for citing the tramway within the setback and requesting the variance is because of the site constraints, the topography of the site. It is really the only viable location to install the tramway. Staff is also required a geotechnical report be submitted reviewing the site of the proposed tramway installation, and the findings were in support of the proposed development. Staff recommends that council authorize notice be given for this variance application.
Couple of questions for staff before then I've got some comments. Would this be the first one of these on Bowen that you're aware of?
No.
No, I can't cite other properties, but I'm aware there are other tramways.
Like this?
Yes.
Yes? There are other ones?
Yeah, there's one over on Captain's Way that I use all the time. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Okay. Partly I'm interested in this because the neighboring island, Gambier, has several of these. First, it was just one for, sounded, as I understand it, almost identical reasons. I wasn't at the meeting, but this is how it was described to me. Now they've got a whole bunch of them, and they're concerned about them. The trustees are, because of the visual impacts. They're large, bright, shiny, like a dock, only going up. And so they There is visual impacts on the beauty and natural look of the island that we may want to consider. The other part I wonder about that 30-meter setback. Is this, that no structures are allowed in that? Would this be a structure?
So a structure is any construction installed on, supported by, or sunk into land or water. So it would definitely be. We have then exceptions in things. So structures can be within the setback to the side. It's like stairways and walkways are allowed, or retaining walls, but this is a structure, yeah.
Okay, so stairways are also allowed in they're a structure that is allowed?
They're a structure and they're allowed with them at more than 2 meters high.
Okay, but this would be how high?
The highest point is over 5 meters.
Thank you. Okay.
No, it comes on the ground though, so.
Well, you would take it perpendicular from the ground to the drawing.
Yeah, so it's a straight plane, and because the ground is uneven, it's above ground quite a bit in some points.
Anyway, so I'm concerned about starting a precedent, increasing a precedent, whatever. I'm concerned about the quick proliferation that they saw of these on our neighboring island next door, maybe other places too. That's just the one that I chatted with trustees about, and they said, watch out for these, they're coming. And here it is. I'm concerned about 5 meters high and the visual impact of these big structures that are sort of like long docks, except they're on the land, and they'll be very visible from the water and visible from neighboring properties. And I think they will change the nature of people's use of the shoreline, and I think they're against our current bylaw, which includes stairs. So I'm going to speak opposed to this motion.
Just maybe a question to staff. Is this something we can refer for comment to the Islands Trust, or is that not within their purview?
I think there's something that precludes us to.
But it's not.
It's not mandated, but there's something that stops us from referring it.
So we could take this, move it down with, and ask Islands Trust for their comment on that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that they'll have much comment because they've got them on other Islands Trust islands too, but it would be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I hear your concern that we don't have a lot, maybe one that Gary knows about on island, and if there are issues on other islands, it'd be nice to know now before we start creating a precedent like that. So I would definitely, I'd like to learn a bit more about these.
I know.
Go ahead.
I just want to say, the tramway is in itself not prohibited on Bowen. It's just that
Okay.
this one is in the setback, requires variance.
So if it had not been in the setback, they could have just built it.
But the setback is a 30-meter setback all around the island, right?
Correct.
To the sea.
To the sea.
And I mean, if the tramway were not so elevated above ground in some points, then if it's below the 2-meter exception, it could be within the setback.
Maureen?
It's horribly steep.
Scary.
Brakes goes out.
And that's the intention to schedule a site visit.
We could,
I think for all of our
Yeah.
DVPs, we should be automatically
I think that should be
scheduling a site visit between notice and decision.
Yeah.
If I may ask, Emma, neighbours, any comment at all from neighbours on this? Are they supportive?
yes, there was, the applicant did forward an email they received from the neighbor, but it wasn't included in the package because it wasn't addressed to staff or municipality or mayor council, and it didn't actually reference any specific plans. So I've asked the applicant to get more specific and have it addressed to mayor and council or staff, and we have our.
And that's the purpose of the notification as well.
Yeah.
And the reason I think the site visit's important, because the map of the topography, I mean, it seems to me that it kind of vanishes down this hill to the beach. I mean, just how visible, practically visible, would it be? Is it visible, or is it in fact
does it vanish down this very steep-looking ravine? I mean, is it visible?
Is the tramway visible?
Yes.
From the water or?
Well, no, from the land. Is it very visible? Is it something that's going to be immediately obvious? I'm trying to glean from the topography, and I can't. Whether that is something, it seems to disappear down here, and that's why I think the site visit is important. I'm also sympathetic in as much as I gather that this individual, the property owner, will in fact be isolated from this, because if they're not able to, they're obviously going to very considerable expense and considerable trouble to give themselves this access. And is it a correct assumption that if they didn't do something like this, or had permission to do something, or agreement to do something like this, they wouldn't in fact have access?
To the water?
Yes.
I would think it would be difficult if
Yeah.
they can't navigate stairs.
Yeah, that's the point I make. So I think to have a look at it and see whether or not it is something that's going to stand out and be seen from every point within
Well,
5 kilometres, or whether it in fact just vanishes down the hill and no one sees
The
it.
roadway is here, and it's a higher elevation, everything slopes down towards the water. If you go down the driveway, this is where they propose to start the tramway, and you can already see the contour lines there, and the steepness of the tram. You really wouldn't see any of the track from where it starts, unless you looked over.
That's something, that's something I'm looking at. Unless you purposefully went and stood on top of it, you wouldn't see it.
And from the water, Emma, would it be visible from the water? Like, would it be like a big metal?
We'll have to go for a boat ride.
Yeah. I kayak right by there, so I can.
In the snow.
Anybody else? I just want to say, I mean, I think these stairs are all pretty, go ahead, David.
Yes, I mean, I'm generally in support of this, since otherwise this person probably wouldn't be able to get down to the water, but I think Michael's point is a good one. A site visit really helps you get a sense of, how intrusive this would be. I mean, I'm assuming it's not very intrusive, but a site visit would help us understand that.
Thank you. I question whether any of the staircase is actually legal. It's there now. But I like the idea of a tram for old people. And it lets them get down to the water, otherwise they're not going to be able to get down there. To your point, Sue Ellen, if it's galvanized steel or whatever it is, it might be very bright, but maybe they could paint it green or something.
My point is, I sympathize with landowners, and however, I think for us looking at Bowen Island as a whole through time, that we should be thinking about properties, not people, and making our decisions about what's best for the island as a whole, and not and thinking about the
individual people.
not thinking about the
general
individual
good
people.
of the island.
There's many wonderful people, but we would approve everything. And I think it's our duty to think about the island on its way through time, and all the natural features and things that are in our official community plan, really, about the ambience of the island and that kind of thing. So that's why I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I mean, obviously, if you're looking at it from the water, it's the only place you're ever going to be able to see this thing, because you're not going to be able to see it from the land side. But, yeah, you're right. Allison?
So all we're doing tonight is reading the notice.
Absolutely
and
correct.
waiting for comments from the neighbors and
So let's get
kayakers and all the other.
So I'll read the recommendation. I move that the notice be given to council will be considering the issuance of development variance permit DVD 05-2018 for the variance of side and sea setback for 510 Smugglers Cove Road, legally described as SL13VAS 2806, District Lot 1605, PID 017784182, at the April 8, 2019 meeting of council. And the council authorized staff to give notice for the consideration of issuance of development variance permit DVP 05-2018 in accordance with section 499 of the Local Government Act, all properties within 100 meters of the legal boundary of 510 Smugglers Cove, legally described as SL 13, VAS 2806, District Lot 1605, PID 0177848182.
Second.
Second, Maureen, thank you. Any further discussion?
Can I just ask a procedural question?
Sure.
On that motion? If, and I will actually defer to Councillor Fast and Councillor Kale, both being Island Trust, our Island Trust representative. If we wanted to get feedback from the Island Trust, is that something we would add in this amendment so that we don't have to do that afterwards? We can get that at this time?
No, it would be a separate resolution, so this is just to give notice.
Okay.
So I would suggest a subsequent motion right afterwards.
And it has to be done today?
I would suggest it, because right now we're giving notice that council will make a decision on April 9th, 8th. But yeah, I would do it tonight if that's.
It won't be sent out later, the DVP?
Well, it's just that now there's effectively, 3 weeks before council will make their decision, less than a month before council makes that decision. So if they want feedback from the Islands Trust, I would pass a resolution this evening, get it to Islands Trust right away, so they have time to make feedback before council makes their decision. Your alternative is to defer consideration of the DVP until a later date.
Okay.
So
And that is tonight that we're doing.
So Alan's correcting it as we speak.
Something.
Good, thank you.
So I would, we have this one moved and seconded, so I would go ahead and.
Oh, I'm sorry. Any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor?
Okay, opposed? Sue Ellen? Allison?
I voted in favor.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Fast in opposition?
And I have a follow-up motion,
Yes?
something like, and I probably need some help here, that council request input about metal tramways such as this application.
Just comments on the application, maybe, yeah?
That, sure, okay.
Would that
We,
be adequate?
I don't think it's.
Impact of metal tramway.
Yeah, I really want to be specific.
Impact, yeah, impact
Okay.
of, request input about impact of metal tramways and any other comments from the Islands Trust. And staff?
Can I just ask with that motion, is that intended to go, we normally our referrals to the Islands Trust go to the Islands Trust Executive Committee, right, and they make sort of a motion, and is this more like a referral to Islands Trust planning staff for sort of
Yeah.
other examples? We're not looking for a motion from it, we're saying experiences with metal
Because
tramways.
I'm not aware that, I don't think the executive committee, I mean, I'm one of them, I don't think I would have anything to give you without referring it back to staff, and then it might come too late. So my feeling is just I like your idea about adding from planning staff.
Islands Trust planning.
Islands Trust planning staff. Yeah. Thank you.
I also think you need to add in relation to DVP 05-2018.
Yeah, that's good. In relation to. Got it?
That's something.
Okay.
That council refer DVP 05-2018 to the Islands Trust, Islands Trust planning staff, specifically for comments in relation to impact to metal tramways and any other comments in relation to the application.
I would maybe impact to other island communities within the Islands Trust.
And it's impact of metal tramways, not on metal tramways. And did you get the words planning staff in there? Yeah. Okay.
Any further discussion? Second, thank you, Rob. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll ask a question. All in favor?
In favor?
Yeah.
Okay, David, how about you, Michael?
No, I'm not in favour.
Okay. And Allison?
I think it's always fun.
Yeah. So do I. I'm opposed to it.
Are you opposed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Councillor Keel's in opposition and Councillor Morris.
Okay.
Passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emma. Sarah?
Okay, I'm here to talk about the Traffic and Use of Streets Amendment Bylaw, number 469, 2018, which is intended to address some ferry lineup issues. So at the January 14th meeting, Council adopted a resolution to read the bylaw for the first time and also refer it to BIMTAC and a public open house for review and comment. Just to refresh your memory on what the proposed amendments are, they're requiring cars to enter the ferry lineup from the last vehicle and to pull up within 0.6 meters of the vehicle or at the start of the hatched area, to only enter the ferry lineup for the purpose of waiting to board the next ferry, and it also prohibits overnight parking and stopping in the ferry lineup other than to wait for a ferry. So when it was referred to BIMTAC, they reviewed it at their January 29th meeting and passed a motion to support the proposed amendments. There weren't really any other comments included in that. We also had the public open house on February 28th, where 6 people attended. The primary concerns that were raised then were the difficulty and lack of need of regulating of the ferry lineup via bylaw, the potential for gaps to be created within the lineup as people aren't going to be filling in those gaps, the difficulty in bringing awareness to tourists or non-residents of the bylaw, and also there was quite a few comments about the lack of visibility of the hatching areas right now. So we also received some suggestions, which included addressing the bylaw through education and signage rather than that bylaw, or sorry, addressing the issues. We also received that allowing drivers to fill in the gaps when the line is static, and also more frequent painting of the hatched areas. We also received 18 letters from 16 individuals as of today, which raised some concern about the gaps. There was one letter about the transport vehicles not being able to park within the ferry lane for their deliveries. The unproven need for a bylaw to address this issue, concern about the potential costs, and then also issues with the spacing. That people felt like with only 24 inches before and after the vehicle, you might not be able to navigate around a vehicle if the driver doesn't return in time for the ferry. And then again, the lack of visibility of the hatching areas came up. So just to address the transport vehicles, we have worked with the RCMP to develop a plan for those vehicles, and so they are, through those discussions, are intended to unload on the north side of Bowen Island Trunk Road, so that'd be the offloading side rather than the ferry lineup side. And there's some signage and reflectors in place with that, so they're visible when doing that. And also with the gaps in the ferry lineup, the intention with this bylaw is if people are complying with entering the lineup behind the last vehicle, that there wouldn't be those gaps. But obviously education and adaptation to this protocol would obviously take some time, so there might be some issues initially with that. So the staff recommendation is that the bylaw be read a second and third time.
Thanks, Sarah. So,
Through the chair, I'm just wondering about the comments that we got from the Underhills. And the one that I was interested in was the one that talked about the wording in the bylaw that says all ferry traffic must enter the ferry line up behind the last vehicle in the ferry line, and how that doesn't fit where we've got double line ferry marshalling, where you're supposed to sort of. So anyway, I was going to suggest that possibly we could just put in the words except in the double lane ferry marshalling area.
Yes, and my comment was, I think we received today or yesterday, yeah. So that,
yeah. I just thought that would help reduce confusion about that area, and that's
thank you, David.
Just a suggestion.
Yeah, I'm putting my hand up here, if I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I agree. I thought there were a lot of really good comments here, and I thought a couple of issues that need to be addressed. One that Sue Ellen just mentioned is that in the upper part where there's a zipper problem, a lot of people just go into the left-hand lane, even if it's a longer lane, and cause trouble with the zipper. The other thing, the other problem is I think if people are not filling in the gaps down below, it's pretty hard to know whether you've got an overload in up at the top. So I think we can fix those with one change. I also think that I'd like to make some changes to where we've got the business about the hatched area. I think clarification around that. One person said, what does hatched area mean? Does it mean on the ground or is there a sign? So I'm suggesting several changes. So A, I think, should say all vehicles in the fair lineup must pull up within about or approximately. Right? Nobody's going to be going around with a measuring tape, but with 24 inches long. And so I think we should have the words approximately in there. Within approximately this distance of the vehicle next to head in the ferry lineup, and then a separate point about the hatched area. Like, what is the start of the hatched area? That's sort of, which end of that is it? And I think that could be confusing, so I'd make that a second point, saying simply that that you cannot park in the hatched areas, or something like no vehicle should line up in the hatched areas of the road. Then I would delete that. I would change the all ferry traffic must enter the ferry lineup behind the last vehicle to what one of the people suggested, which was the first open space closest to the dock. And I think that deals with Swellen's concern, and I think that deals with the filling in gaps down below. The first open space closest to the dock. So I made several changes there. I'm not sure if you were able to capture them all.
I hope so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Between Sarah and Hope, go ahead.
you know, I've got to be honest, I hope this doesn't go forward to the next readings. When I look what's been put up on the board, on the screen there, and when I look at the points that David has just made, and I look at the sort of cartoon laughability about 24 inches, to say nothing of entering the line behind the last vehicle, which just seems to me to be a recipe for chaos. We need to support our excellent people on the who are trying to maintain our bylaws. This seems to be has developed into an amazingly cack-handed and ill-conceived way of doing it. I'd like to see it go back, see what the basic issues are, and go back to redrafting this sensibly. Because I don't think it makes sense. I take David's amendments to heart. I take points made in letters. I take points shown on the screens. And I think we've lost track of this bylaw. And I would like to see, in conjunction with our bylaw people, to have it rewritten again, where it makes sense, it's simpler. And quite honestly, I don't think this is going to work. And I think it's evading the issue of having enough people on the ground at key times to help islanders, probably especially visitors, to handle ferry marshalling. And I'm sorry, legislating by bylaw public behaviour is a nonsense. And I just think we've lost the plot here. And I hope we'll send it back for rethinking, because it's turned into a ghastly topsy of a mess. And whatever it takes, and the essence is to support our own people. Please, let's not move this on without giving it a major rethink. There's just too many questions raised for such a small bill.
I was going to suggest deferral, not for the reasons you lay out, Councillor Kale, but for the input received from Councillor Fast and Councillor Hawking. I don't recommend giving readings to a bylaw when it's had numerous changes. Certainly, the feedback we've received over the last couple of months from council members is there is general support for this bylaw. So our marching orders, if tonight, would be to amend per the specific direction and bring it back forward to the future.
So,
I support that. I think, for me, it's getting clearer and clearer. And to speak to David's suggestion about approximately, that doesn't help a bylaw officer enforce. It has to be exact. And we heard that from bylaw staff earlier in the process, which might have been last year. I can't remember. And I think it's getting much better. The point is to have something that's enforceable. And I think it's we're getting great comments from everybody, and we're still working on it. But I'd like to thank staff.
Yeah. Okay.
Maureen?
I don't think we need to go back to the drawing board. I think there are the revisions that were suggested to the first clause, Clause A, and those can be pretty simply addressed. You just need some sub-points there, Sarah. If you break them out, it will read more clearly. And as for not being able to legislate behavior, that keeps coming up. And honestly, through bylaw, we legislate behavior all the time. So that's a non-starter for me in terms of an argument. So I support deferral, and with the changes that are being suggested and with the close reading of some of the letters that came in quite late with feedback on the bylaw.
Agreed.
What I would request is that when staff does report back with the future readings of the bylaws, is that we get input from bylaw staff as to what the cost estimate would be to enforce something like this in FTEs with a general idea.
It's there.
I think it was there. Yeah, it's there.
Well, as you know, I have not been in favor of this bylaw since from the beginning, and I tried that approximately on for sides, and that didn't work. It's just, and my biggest concern is you put these rules in place, and then it's only gonna work if you've got staff on the ground. And that is going to be a 0.1 FTE gives you how many more hours?
Yeah, that's my concern with point one FTE.
So I don't think
that's.
I think we should just scrap the whole thing.
Well, I don't agree with that, but what I would like is maybe a conversation with planning staff and our new bylaw supervisor to get an idea of, is 0.1 FTE accurate or not?
And I guess the other is the fear is how much they're willing to pay on the person we hired. Yeah, there's 0.1 FTE plus the person on the ground that we hired to do traffic marshalling. I assume is still in the plan.
Yeah, I think, you know, you can put all the bylaws you want in the world, but if there isn't somebody there to actually, you know, manage them, then it's not gonna happen. I'm sort of, it's a really difficult situation, and we were brought to this because the public was not happy with what was going on down there in the middle of the summer, the high volume at times. And it was creating a very bad situation in the lower Cove. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to put it back and get it back on the rails again, and we have to start somewhere. I think there has to be something here. Maybe we haven't got it quite right yet, but I think there has to be something that we can work on and be able to, you know, look after. So
I was just gonna say, whatever bylaw we come up with, it would be great to get it done before the summer. And when the trouble and strife happens, especially for the businesses down the Cove and the people trying to get to the store to buy milk, and those kinds of things. But I also think this can be supported with educational and communications work, such as the things that the little ferry guides that the BIMTAC and staff have been doing the last 2 years, and I think that will be helpful. And I have ideas, but I won't bring them all out now. Do you need a motion to defer?
okay, Hope's got it there. I was going to go to Maureen and then we'll go to the motion.
Just a final comment, I hope. When we started this conversation about a bylaw, we figured it would take us until the summer to get through.
Oh, yeah.
So we're right on track.
All right, Hope, what have you got?
The council directs staff to amend bylaw number 469, 2018 for discussion at its March 11th meeting, and that council defer consideration of second and third reading of bylaw 469, 2018 to a future council meeting.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor? Thank you.
In favor?
Thank you, David. It's unanimous. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
Okay.
8.1, Daniel.
Here we are at 8.1, Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So I'm presenting today on our rezoning application for 431 Bowen Island Trunk Road, the Union Steamship Marina application. And specifically, so in Council at the January 28th meeting, gave second reading to the bylaw to amend the land use bylaw, so bylaw 461. At that time, Council directed staff to prepare a draft housing agreement and sewer covenant based on the conditions outlined in that report for consideration prior to a public hearing. So we have in the report today the sewer covenant and the housing agreement looking for direction from council to proceed to a public hearing. So the sewer covenant, I'll go through first. So that's a section 219 covenant that council can enter into to restrict conditions on land. And so it follows the recommendations that were in the report and from the Snug Cove Sewer Committee, and it basically regulates that each onboard system be inspected annually for the onboard sewer treatment, and that each onboard system be tested quarterly for the first year of operations and then annually, and that solids not be pumped into the municipal system. So the covenant itself is quite a bit longer, but those are the sort of the key clauses in the covenant. And so just for council who don't know, so a covenant can be entered into at one meeting of council. So we brought this forward for council's information to go in the public hearing package, and then following third reading, we'd be looking for, assuming council proceeds to give it third reading, that registration of the covenant be a condition before final approval of the rezoning. So in the next we have the housing agreement. So a little refresher. So housing agreements are outlined in section 483 of the Local Government Act, and that authorizes local governments may enter into a bylaw for a housing agreement that can regulate things like the form of tenure, the availability of housing units to classes of persons, and that's what we're doing in this bylaw. Administration of the housing units, rent or sale prices of the units. So that's why this is a bylaw, and the sewer one is a covenant. So the housing agreement is bylaw number 480. So it requires that the units are only rented to a qualified tenant. That's when someone being employed on Bowen Island. So it lists the businesses of the Union Steamship, as well as or similar businesses on Bowen Island. May be rented as a commercial guest accommodation from October 1st to April 30th. And so what we're looking for tonight is to get first reading for bylaw number 480 to receive the sewer covenant for information, and then to refer bylaw 461, the land use bylaw amendment bylaw, to a public hearing. And I did speak to Allison earlier with some changes to the housing agreement. But what we're looking for tonight is that first reading for the housing agreement. And then again, we would bring it back for second and third reading, following third reading of the land use bylaw amendment bylaw.
All my comments were largely typos.
Okay. All right, thanks, Dave. Can you go back a slide?
Yeah.
April 31st?
That was one of them.
That was one of them.
Oh. Yeah. Good. Any discussion? Maureen?
Yeah, just, you probably caught this, just the 3.5, 3.6.
Yeah.
And then I have a question regarding Schedule B with the definition of employee. And defines Union Steamship, Rondean, Dorothy, Doc's Restaurant, or other related business that operates on Bowen Island. I didn't know what related meant in that context. A related business owned by the Dykes, or?
It's supposed to be any
No,
business
it
on
intended to be
Bowen.
any business, yeah.
Okay,
So that
so I
related
think,
should be deleted.
yeah, I think just
Yeah.
delete related, and
Yeah.
that'll solve it. And then Schedule A is just a floor plan, I'm assuming, and then the license agreement is to come.
Yeah.
Thank you.
John?
A question I've asked before, do the dwellings have building permits?
No.
And are they managed by building permits, or is there who classifies them as safe for people to live in? It's not the building code?
They, ROCP lays out the BC float home standards. It says that float homes, so it's a provincial thing that says float homes will be built to the standards of the BC building code with some exceptions to do with ladder heights, and that's the main one I'm familiar with, yeah.
Okay, and is there, I'm just wondering why, I see them out there and they don't have building permits at this point. Is that going to, I'm just concerned that, will they get, what's the next step? Do they get an occupancy permit at some point, or how does it work? How do we know that those buildings are safe for people to live in?
So we are not able to issue a building permit until the zoning complies, until the building complies with the zoning. So if council proceeds with the zoning, we would be looking for a building permit and occupancy permit, based on a code compliance report from somebody accredited, like an engineer or an architect.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Daniel, should they have a stop work order on them right now?
There's not work being done on them, and so building,
I've had that question asked by a number of people.
yeah, building a movable structure, is an issue that's building in our building bylaw. So for example, there's someone about who's building a tiny home on their lot, on a trailer, and that's not regulated, that's building like a vehicle or building a boat on a, and so it'd be at the point that they're being used for use that's not compliance that we would put a do not occupy on.
Rob?
Yeah, I just have a question, and I asked this a ways back. The October 1st to April 30th, allow to rent out the commercial, I guess, accommodation. So here's a scenario: somebody on island is working for a restaurant, and their partner's working in the city. They don't work in the restaurant in the wintertime. Their partner's still working in the city. Are they going to get kicked? Could they be asked to leave that residence and then have to, so they're now in an unstable housing situation? Or is this only when people voluntarily leave because they don't have work that they get rented out to accommodate?
So my understanding is if you were hired by the marina for the summer period, so they take on significantly more staff in the summer for the marina and the docks, that your tenancy would be limited to the period of your employment. So if you came to work in the marina in the summer, that your
I'm just thinking of the quote-unquote related businesses, so somebody working at the pub, for instance, right? Like, what happens there?
Yeah, I mean, the owner's intent is to make it available for the workers at their business. The municipality said we want to open to other businesses on Bowen. You know, maybe if the rental market uses up on Bowen, vacancies and looking to fill them, we're saying, okay, you can fill them with other employees, but their intent would be that
First choice is their employee.
yeah, first choice is their employees, and they don't foresee challenges filling it with their employees.
But if somebody wanted to stay there, let's say, okay, even they could be asked to leave, basically. Or it would be on a short-term rental agreement.
It would just be a little
Yeah.
term.
Yeah.
It'd be like you're renting this for 6 months type of deal.
Yeah. Like if they're employed for the summer period, then my understanding is that the unit would be there for the summer period when they're employed by the marina.
And it's the same with the related businesses, they would be on the 6 months.
Any further discussion?
I'll move that bylaw number 482, 2019, Cybers Union Steamship Marina Housing Agreement Authorization bylaw number 480, 2019 be read first time. And that council receive a covenant for information, and that council receive bylaw number 461, 2018 to a public hearing.
Any further discussion? I'll ask a question. All in favor? Thank you.
In favor?
Thank you, David. It's unanimous. All right. Oh.
I'm gonna sit over here so I can see all of you.
That clock on the wall isn't right.
Yeah, throw her up for a day.
Well, I was like, wow, this meeting is going slow.
I'll be, I won't say quick, but I'll be efficient about.
Okay.
So I'm here today to talk about Mannion Bay. This report came about just because of recent issues with the bay and correspondence that we've received from members of the public with significant concern with the current state of the bay. So just for the benefit of those that don't know the history of the bay, I'll just give a quick kind of background of our bylaws that pertain to the bay. So we have bylaw number 418, which is our use of public beaches and water areas bylaw. And so it includes provisions that regulate to the use of areas within Mannion Bay specifically. and key provisions that address problem vessels, which specifically that relate to derelict or abandoned vessels. Section 4.1 is that no person shall moor a structure, liveaboard, or float home in a water area for longer than 48 consecutive hours in a 30-day period. And section 5.2, which no person shall park or store a structure on a beach for any purpose. And just to, because I'm sure somebody will ask, the definition of structure, I'll just get that for you just because it is kind of important to what we're referring. Hang on, just bear with me. So a structure means a vessel or a building designed to float on water that is not intended for recreation or is not suitable for navigation. So that's the definition of a structure, and the definition of a vessel means a boat, ship, or craft designed, used, or capable of being used solely for or partly for navigation. So that just kind of separating out the two. One is for recreation to be used on water, and one is incapable of being moved under its own power. So that being said, I'll just move along. So bylaw number 450 was adopted in November of 2017, and that was brought about kind of in tandem with the municipality securing the license of occupation from the province for Mannion Bay. And so this just allows the municipality to collect a fee for the placement and keeping of a mooring buoy in Mannion Bay. And so that's a $240 annual fee. So in my report, I outlined what we collected in 2018, and that was roughly just over $7,200. And so the municipality had the ability through this bylaw to take it for non-payment. And so the license of occupation is for the whole of Mannion Bay. There's a diagram there. So the license of occupation is a 30-year tenure for Mannion Bay, and it basically gives us authorization to require registration, insurance, and proof of ownership, and the ability to charge a fee for mooring buoys. It also states that the monies collected will be funneled back into, well, the management plan states that the money is to be funneled back into fulfilling the intent of the tenure, which is restorative efforts. For example, eelgrass planting, beach cleanups, etc. It's also intended to dissuade activities that do not coincide with the intent of the tenure. So beaching of vessels, mooring at will, putting down a mooring buoy without consultation with the province, etc. Mooring structures or vessels that are non-compliant with the bylaws. So that means structures, boats that are being used as storage or for other means that are not intended for recreational use, which is our main problem. And also the restoration and enhancement by limiting the acceptable uses to activities with safe and environmentally sound recreational activities. So using the beach for swimming and, rowboats, etc. And public education. So Transport Canada, the municipality, BIM's bylaw staff have a really good relationship with Transport Canada through the Abandoned Boats program. And so the Abandoned Boats program provides funding to assist in the assessment and removal of abandoned or wrecked boats. In 2018, we utilized the program on 4 separate occasions. And we were successful in receiving funding for each of those. The Mooring Buoy Sweep is a separate program, and that is through the Transport Canada's Navigation Protection Program. And so it's very independent of the municipality. BIM staff are just kind of have attended them as a BIM presence, and the RCMP have also attended those. And most recently, there was one on January 29th. Our bylaw officer, Donna Bote, attended, and 8 non-compliant mooring buoys were removed, and an additional 3 non-compliant buoys were identified, but they were attached to vessels, so they could not be removed at that time. So Transport Canada has the contact information and is trying to get in touch with those owners to notify them of such, and to either have them become compliant or have them removed in the next sweep, which is at a date to be determined. So current issues, include the recurrence of abandoned and derelict vessels. So currently there are 2 vessels that require immediate attention. There's a sailboat that is currently beached near Snug Point, which is at risk of being further damaged or set adrift if we have another severe weather incident. And the other is a sailboat that has been submerged in the bay. The mast, this is a recent photo, although the mast is now broken off. We have confirmed through the local tow company who went and inspected it that the boat is in fact still is there. There was some talk of the boat had been potentially towed away, but that is not the case. The boat is still in the bay and does pose a significant navigational hazard at this time. So staff are working with Transport Canada to get in contact with the owner of the beach sailboat to determine whether it is abandoned at this time. There is uncertainty whether the owner would like to remain ownership or hand it over, and so we're just working on confirming that. And so if the vessel is, or if and when the vessel is confirmed abandoned, we would be able to apply to the Abandoned Boats Program for funding to have it removed and disposed of responsibly. And then with regards to the sailboat, my understanding is that the owner has been in touch with the local tow company to set up a time, and it is also my understanding that a past Bowen resident has offered to help financially fund the removal so that it doesn't fall on the taxpayers and the municipality. So that is a generous offer that is on the table that I think the boat owner is just trying considering that no movement has happened as of yet on that, but we're hopeful as it is a navigational hazard and we would like to see it get cleaned up as soon as possible. So unfortunately in these circumstances with staff's only avenue is to, when a boat is beached or sunk in this case, our only avenue is to wait till it's confirmed to be abandoned before applying to the Abandoned Boats Program or receiving consent from the property owner, or the boat owner rather. And at that point, funding, I think the funding is never assured, although we've been really successful in receiving fee funding from the program in the past. This is not something we want to rely on moving forward. So just the concerns raised from members of the public, there are several. Mainly that boat owners with limited or no financial resources are being allowed to anchor in the bay. And their boats are usually non-conforming with their mooring boards and within the bylaw, so they're not able to run under their own power and they're being used as structures rather than vessels which are intended for recreational use. And unfortunately the license of occupation is limited in its means, and the municipality does not have the authority to or the ability to restrict who can and cannot moor in the bay. And some concerns from bylaw staff just relating to the issues raised in my report are just the limited resources available to regularly patrol the bay. So in the bylaw budget, there has been funding in the past to have semi-annual, you go out with Cormorant Marine or whoever and patrol the bay to see what the status of moorings are and just see the status of the bay. So we'll continue that as funding is available. But specifically with derelict vessels, our resources are limited. And difficulty identifying current owners of problem vessels has also been an issue for staff. Determining whether a boat is a vessel or a structure as defined in the bylaw. It's a challenge having owners prove whether their vessel can run under its own power, etc. So it's just the extent of which we enforce our bylaw. Other enforcement methods available are not feasible for the municipality to pursue, so seizure and removal due to limited budget resources. So that is outlined in bylaw 418, is that the municipality has the authority to seize and dispose of vessels, and that the cost would be recovered from the owner, which is, I would like to say, unlikely to happen. So at that point, we would apply for the abandoned boats program to recover those costs. And so financial implications, in 2018, we salvaged and disposed of derelict vessels in Manning Bay totaling approximately $12,200, and $7,200 of that was recovered through moying buoy fees, and an additional $1,800 from the abandoned boats program. So for Manning Bay, there was, I would say, a surplus of funds, although the intention of the fees collected from mooring buoys is not solely for the purpose of derelict vessels. There's other intentions of that which are laid out in the Manning Bay Management Plan, which is attached to the license of occupation. So that being said, for the whole of Bowen Island, there was an additional $13,000 for several boats that were wrecked and needed to be disposed of in other parts of the island. And so $6,000, roughly almost $7,000 was recovered through the abandoned boats program. And then the municipality funded the remaining amount, which was about $6,300. So that being said, I just want to highlight the numbers and that we do have a provision for $10,000 in our upcoming budget. And that the municipality can.
Yeah, if I may step in, I mean, one of the reasons for this report is, as staff, we need to manage the expectations of the community with the limited resources we have, and also our limited sphere of influence. And this report was just more to flag for council the complexity of this file. I think we've come a long way in the last few years. But it is a struggle from a staff perspective to live up to some of the expectations.
Well, but yeah, I said it better myself. So my conclusion is that recent trends indicate that the number of derelict and abandoned vessels is kind of on the rise, and our severe weather that we've been having isn't helping, and that, you know, additional council may wish to allocate additional funding or resources to monitoring and the removal of disposal of derelict vessels. Otherwise, status quo will be maintained, and staff will do everything they can to utilize the resources available to us through the abandoned boats program, and the Coast Guard also has potential funding available for things of this nature.
Thank you, that's great. And that passing of the bill the other day, C-64, I guess, is that going to help us at all? Does that give us teeth?
I don't know much about it myself, but I think that Tyler does know a little bit about the bill 64.
C-64.
C-64.
Yeah, I don't think that I could really speak to council regarding the bill at this point. I know that it is far along in its process. There's a term where the Governor General has approved the bill. It's now passed that state, and it does deal with boats that are larger than 16 feet. So there is some limitations as far as but it is to be able to give Transport Canada and the Coast Guard authority to be able to manage boats in a more timely and effective way.
Timely would be really good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my question is, I think it centers around the mooring buoys. Now, to put a mooring buoy in there, you have to register it.
And pay the fee.
Sorry?
Pay the fee.
And pay the fee, the annual fee, that's the other part of it. But if you put a boat on that boat has to be insured and it has to be registered. It has to have a registered owner on it. So, just explain to me why these other mooring buoys that are illegal, now I see we cleaned up 8 of them, but 3 of them were attached to other boats. But are these boats, and the other thing about the mooring buoys is you shouldn't be able to have somebody come in and use somebody else's mooring buoy. Because you're supposed to have a name on it.
That's correct.
Phone the owner and say, hey, does this guy allow us to put his boat on there? So that should take care of that, but I guess there's still a lot of mooring buoys out there that aren't identified.
There are mooring buoys out there that were put there before we had the license of occupation and we had the ability to regulate
Yeah,
more so. So the mooring buoys that are there are there, and Transport Canada, the province oversees those, and there's a private buoy regulation that sets out what the height and the color of your buoy and specific restrictions that are in my report. But unfortunately, that's beyond our scope and our authority.
so are you saying that anything that was there before the LOO can just stay there, it's grandfathered in, or not?
It can't, it needs to be compliant with our bylaw,
Oh, okay.
but if they're not taken out in the sweep, Transport Canada will be doing the sweep. We can only enforce so far as our bylaws, so we can give violation notices for them to become compliant, but further than that, we would need to hire the tug and barge company to go out there and remove them, and that's more Transport Canada's mandate.
Yeah. And we don't have anything about eyesores in there, do we? And there's not much we can do. Somebody has a legal boat on the mooring. Is there
I
anything?
think we just need to be clear about what's our jurisdiction and what's Transport Canada.
So, go ahead.
Morning.
I've got two questions. One is just, who determines that a boat is abandoned? Like, how does that happen? Is it a decision? Do you need to find an owner to confirm that it's abandoned, or?
Well, Ronnie does that in his marina, because if somebody leaves a thing on the dock, and you've got to post all these notices in the Gazette and whatever, and for 30 days or whatever to say, you know, and if you don't come and claim your boat within so many days, then we'll do something.
And would that be the process that Transport Canada would use?
That is the process, and they have recently done that for a boat in Manning Bay. And then somebody did claim it, and had they not claimed it, Transport Canada would have paid to have it removed and disposed of. And now unfortunately, they've claimed it,
Right.
and it's sitting in the bay, and it is moments away from becoming another.
Right, okay, thank you. And then my second question had to do with, in the case where a sunken boat is presenting a navigational hazard, what obligation, if any, does the municipality have when there is a known hazard in the bay?
Transport Canada, is that correct, Bob?
Well, it's on the bottom, so it's the province's problem.
Yes.
And
But because of our license of occupation, I believe that there is provisions in there that we would be responsible for that. I don't fully understand the scope of the license of occupation, so I would need to get clarification on
Yeah,
that.
because I think that's an important question. If we are aware of that, it's a hazard, we have some sort of responsibility, that area needs to be marked in some way,
Yeah.
I would assume.
can we ask the Coast Guard to come and mark it?
We definitely could.
Yeah.
I would,
So I think our obligation is to inform Transport Canada of it, and these two particular vessels are on Transport Canada's radar. The Vessels of Concerns Officer for the region knows about them, is being updated regularly by us, and so it really is up to them to determine if it is a navigational hazard that they would require further steps to be taken. And at this moment in time, they've been informed that the mast is no longer there, which again visually was an indicator, being that it's shallow waters, being that it's not the waters aren't being traveled by larger vessels regularly. It isn't a concern at this point. I'm just waiting to hear back if not having a mast changes that status.
Great, thank you, Todd.
the caveat with this is that we're not able to seize property without the owner's consent. So the owner is somewhat unreachable, so for us to just go ahead and hire somebody to remove this boat is essentially illegal. So there is a bit of a gray area there as well.
Rob?
Yeah, Hope, what are we doing to get these people to pay for the disposal of the boats? Like, are there, like you said, like it's unlikely to collect the fees? Is this because we don't know who the boats belong to, or are people saying, you deal with it?
So
and,
after when we apply to the abandoned boats program, the boats are abandoned. So there is no owner, so there's no way to collect, to recover those costs. But in a situation where we would seize and remove the boat, we would seek to recover the cost because we would know the owner, but we have not yet had to do that.
So the abandoned boat program is more for boats that we don't know who the owners
They're
are?
for abandoned vessels.
Yeah, so they're just,
Yeah.
okay.
Littering.
Can I just ask you, Mayor? I'm looking at 3 pictures here. I've got one with a boat that is now underwater, and goodness knows, I don't know whether it has an engine, I don't know what's inside it, I don't know what oil is floating around in it, I don't know what goods and whatever is in there, which is about to might break over and spill. We've got another one that looks a bit, frankly, other than it's an eyesore, could also go down, and goodness knows what's inside this one. I remember taking a photograph of this when I came in the ferry, and frankly, it looks like a perfectly good sailboat, which most unfortunately broke away in the storm and ended up beached on the rocks. Now, so just to digress a second, is that in fact an abandoned boat, or does someone own that and desperately want to get it back?
Somebody owns it.
We know who it is,
We do.
and there's a chance of it getting... Because very respectfully, I can see, I mean, having been a sailboat owner myself, it would only just take another major storm and suit that boat and its entire contents. And for all that we talk about the environment and the ocean and goodness knows what else, and see this and see the other and stuff that, you know, all the things we talk about, I presume that engine has a sailboat, most do, and I have no idea, do we have any idea where it contains fuel? Has anyone been aboard it?
My understanding is that the owner of that boat did go and salvage the generator and fuel tanks from it.
Fuel has been removed, batteries, any items that were identified by the Coast Guard as being problematic and that they would fine the owner about have been removed.
Okay, well that at least I guess is a step in the right direction. That just leaves, in the worst case scenario, the physical debris of that boat should be broken up against the rocks to just make its way casually onto the beach.
So Transport Canada has, and staff have tried to get in touch with both of these boat owners, and they are both somewhat unreachable.
See, I understand your frustration. If there was a car abandoned in the middle of Trunk Road,
It's easy to tow.
it would be towed and impounded. Now, that one presents some physical
Not on Bowen.
differences. This one, maybe it will be soon, and this one, I understand your frustration, and I understand the residents' frustration. But I want to be honest with you, what does it take to give everyone some teeth so we can deal with this and this before it becomes an underwater graveyard about to disperse its whatever's all over the beach?
If we are able to get in touch with the boat owners and confirm that they are abandoning the vessel, we are then able to apply to the abandoned boats program to receive funding.
And how long does that normally take?
Yeah, how long?
And we can't remove it until we know we received funding, right?
5-6 months?
Yes, I would say 6 months would be a benchmark. That would be reasonable.
So it sits there floating, excuse me, sir, it sits there floating for 6 months. And goodness knows in that 6 months, and believe me, I empathise with your situation, it sits there sitting for 6 months. Maybe during that 6 months it's going to go to the bottom of the ocean. Well, I've got to tell you something, from everyone's point of view, and we went to huge difficulties to get this license of occupation.
Yeah.
It was a major operation. I guess now the question is, what do we have to do to take over the area of which we have a license more proactively, so that we have less boats going to the bottom and more towed away in a timely manner? And I ask the question because waiting 6 months for something to sink doesn't seem a terribly good idea. Watching something sink seems even worse, and seeing something like that in the month of March seems even more perilous. So I've got to ask the question, what can we do to help you to gain the stewardship
of an area where we have obtained a license of occupation. I'm not asking you to give me the answer now, but I hope you can get it soon, because this doesn't work.
Well, that's the way the law is written.
Yeah.
We don't own the boat.
You
And
can't touch
and
the
as soon
boat.
as he abandons it, we can apply for the receiver of rights, which might only take 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and he would let us be receiver of it. But but then if we're gonna remove it, we're gonna pay for it all by ourselves. Because when you apply for federal grants, you have to apply for the grant and before you do the work. Otherwise, you don't get the grant.
Meanwhile, the boat stays there.
Yeah.
Well, that's the system we have, unfortunately, so.
I just want to say that I'm looking for solutions that don't cost the local taxpayers more money to clean up littering from some people that don't even necessarily have never set foot on boat. And so I encourage you, as our other Bowen Island trustee, Michael, to support the advocacy efforts of the Islands Trust towards finding lasting solutions and getting more funding from higher levels of government, the province and the feds. And those, like Kathy says, we've got a limited sphere of influence here. And I know there have been people who've been generous with their time and their efforts and their own local advocacy and their dollars in some cases. And but it shouldn't all fall to us. And the working through the Islands Trust is one way that we can get further legislation from the province and the federal government. And that's so we've got the opportunity starting tomorrow at the Trust Council.
Well, may it be more speedy than other solutions yet to come apparent.
But Councillor Kelly, your frustration is what staff feel.
Yeah,
A
I
lot of this
understand.
is outside of our jurisdiction, and even if we had bucket loads of money thrown at us, I don't know if it would be a faster process.
What do you, could we have, if we need to pursue whatever route we need to pursue, given the current legislation, I mean, of course we would, because it's unfortunately dumped on our bays, whether we like it or not.
Well, it's all over the coast.
And it's all over the coast.
Yeah.
Then I guess we have to mobilise some other forces. Islands Trust can lend a hand because of all the other beaches that come within their jurisdiction. All the other beaches have this problem, then they better be invested in it.
Well, we should probably have a talk with our MLA. And then,
So does Seychelles, so does
Yeah, no, we've all got the same problem.
Big Barge and thing.
The Islands Trust does tons of advocacy, and we can urge them to continue that.
Okay, I just, sorry, Maureen?
It does sound as though staff are having ongoing conversations
Yeah.
with the boat owners, and I think that is more likely to bear fruit in the short run than
Changing
But I
legislation.
can't underscore how much staff time is being spent on this one issue. I mean, it's taking a significant amount of Tyler's time, Hope's time, and it's not getting us very far, but other areas are suffering within bylaw services because of the amount of time we're spending on this.
I will say the amount of time and the effort that Bonnie put into it, building the relations with Transport Canada and with Coast Guard, no, Transport Canada and the province and so forth, have really borne fruit, and way more fruit than I have seen borne by any bylaw efforts or anything of the Islands Trust. Bonnie was spearheading, was considered a recognized expert in the area.
And she will be a recognized expert when she's back.
You know, and Tyler's and Donna are picking it up and working on it, and we're probably way further ahead than a lot of people. My friend who's chair of the APC up in the Seychelles, he's like, how did you do that and whatever? And I said, well, it's this. And so, you know, we have to give applause to the bylaw staff. And I think we need to move on.
Yes, we do.
It's getting very big.
Just the Ocean Watch Task Force, it's true, Bonnie is the one that they refer to, and she did a couple of workshops, and in other places, it's the local elected regional directors and things like that who end up down on the beach in the night with the waves and the fuel and all this stuff.
And I would say that, I know Councillor Morse wants to move on, but it's not only Bonnie who has been the recognized expert, it's also Councillor Morse, This has been a file that she and Lonnie worked on for many, many years together. And certainly our current bylaw officer has built upon those relationships very effectively, and we maintain those. But we just need to manage expectations about what we can do as a municipality with the resources and with the sphere of influence we have.
Thank you. I understand we're doing the best job we can. And if there's any, obviously you're looking at any angles in the future to try to expedite this situation because it's not healthy at all. Anyway, I'd like to move the recommendation the council receive for information and report from the corporate officer regarding an update on the Manning Bay strategy dated March 5th, 2019.
Second.
Second, thank you. And no further discussion, all in favor?
Favor.
Thank you, David. Okay, that's unanimous. Correspondence, so we have to read this recommendation.
Is this time sensitive?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. They have their AGM coming up. This is, this is the correspondence from the Community Foundation.
Yeah, because I have no problem with the program, but I'm not quite sure why they need us as an intermediary.
Well, they seem to very strongly indicate that they did. We met with them twice. And I think it just shows support for the Community Foundation. They're keen for us to partner with them in this way.
Absolutely.
We can always bring forward a revised resolution at a later date when those conversations have taken place, but it was important that they got this on the agenda sooner rather than later.
Just looking at time, are there, because it looks like we got almost another hour to go already, 9:30 almost. Are there things here that, do we need to go through this whole agenda, continue with it, or are there, like, I don't mind going that
If
one?
all goes well here, we'll be finished in 10 minutes.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so can we put a,
Councilor Moore, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to answer your question about why they needed us. Raj had sent an email.
yeah, I'm trying to find it.
It's that the foundation is required to make their contribution to a charitable organization,
I know
which
all
the
that.
recipients wouldn't be.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I practiced in the income tax estate planning charitable organizations area, and I thought charitable foundations could carry on charitable activities. So, and they're doing it right now with the Helping Hands thing.
Mm-hmm.
So-
Yeah, that's a little twisted.
Well, anyhow, so, and I'm just not sure, so, if, and going back to some discussions that we had with the auditors this time last year. So can we add a clause to it, therefore it be resolved the municipality enter into an agreement to act as charitable partner for the received grant funds from the Bowen Community Foundation and disbursement of funds to grant subject to discussions with our auditors? Which is, I'm trying to find out his email, because that was a suggested amendment he said he could throw in there. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to vote against the resolution. Not that I don't think it's a good idea, but I'm not comfortable with it, knowing my background.
How does everybody feel about that?
Just going back to the initial question about, is this time sensitive? In what way is it time sensitive?
Well, I understand their AGM is coming up soon and they wanted a response prior to that.
Well, we don't know if their AGM's in 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
No, I don't know.
Because Raj isn't here, and
So,
I wonder if the issue here is helping our partners help Bowen Island youth at risk.
yeah.
Then how about we pass this tonight maybe with the condition that Councillor Morse is suggesting, which is to add the word subject to discussions with our auditors. And maybe that will help. Hey David, could you mute your sound? We're hearing excited children.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just like home.
just said, be it resolved that the municipality enter into an agreement with, to act as a charitable, so it's enter into an agreement, which implies that there's gonna be details worked out to me, so I'd be prepared to, move this motion, and I'm wondering if anybody else has any comments about, the subject to Councillor Morse's, idea, subject to discussions with our auditors.
Yeah, I like what you're saying there, Sue Ellen. It does say therefore the result municipality enter an agreement.
Yeah.
So will that agreement come back to us?
No, this was the intent to go on.
Well,
Yeah.
can you resolve those issues before that?
Well, that's why, and I can't find the email from Raj, subject to discussions with the auditors would, I think, solve that.
With our auditors,
Yes.
can we put this, to try and put this technicality to bed so we
Okay.
can move ahead?
So whereas the Bowen Island municipality has received a request from the Bowen Island Community Foundation to act as its
Excuse
committee.
me, can I, the AGM is April 26th.
Okay. Oh, fine. So I move deferral.
A second.
Yeah, all in favor?
Thank you, Maureen.
Yep.
I was about to look.
Unanimous. I knew that would get going faster. Okay. New business, trustee Michael Kale.
Okay, well, in the interest of brevity, what I'll try and do is just to confine to this recommendation that I'd like to be able to take forward to our Islands Trust meeting. Just one small correction. It says the requisition is 332. Looking at the latest set of figures, it seems to read 329609.
It's been coming down.
Yeah, so it's now 332, it's now 329609. And I confess, because I've been somewhat invested in this issue, I did make recourse to our CAO and hope to try and produce a balanced recommendation that people thought they could support. I'm sure councillors are equally adequate to reading all the letters that have been submitted as I have, and therefore I'm offering this recommendation as something that I hope we can get broadly based agreement upon, that we can take forward to the Islands Trust meeting. And I'm open to any comments or thoughts.
So you're missing the whereas that says whereas the calculation for financial contribution is embedded in the Islands Trust Act in section 47 sub 2 and further clarified in the Islands Trust policy requisition.
No problem with that. If that represents the facts, we can certainly add that.
Or
I agree with Allison's point, that's one that I was concerned with, but she's correct.
Okay, so
Yeah, I just, I had handed around a piece of paper here. I guess I handed them all to you, and I didn't hand them to you. Okay, thank you.
this one.
This is, it's this sheet, and it says Islands Trust allocated financial statements. And if you look at the first line across that reads total direct revenue, it's the line that goes across. What you'll see,
And this is for the year ended March 31, 2017. For
2017, 2018, yeah, so it's the current
not
year.
the current budget.
Not the proposed budget, it's the current. But what I I was just concerned about Councillor Kale's message, or a motion says to reflect an equitable contribution. And I just wanted to let people know that right now, there are eight other islands that pay more than Bowen, and 5 that pay less. Some of them pay considerably more than Bowen, like Salt Spring, and even Galliano pays more. So the idea of equitable contribution, I wondered if you wanted to reconsider whether you wanted to have an equal, is that what you mean?
Not equal, because we said equitable, because you're quite right in the point. Well, I don't know about the 5, but you're right in the points that you raised. But of course, we are the only municipality within Islands Trust.
We're
So-
only paying for the bottom couple of things.
Yeah.
So I can only, I have no problem with equitable in view of what I read in the letters I've received.
Okay.
And
Here's
except
what,
for-
if I can just continue, here's what Islands Trust moved, well, this was the Financial Planning Committee, moved back in November 21st. I moved it, in fact, that staff be directed to develop options for calculating the formula for the municipal tax requisition calculation contribution in the Islands Trust budget. And so just to let you know, they're already working on that as they reported last Monday.
I think this wants to be reinforced, and I think it wants to be reinforced from council.
And I thought reading the minutes that it used the words fair and equitable in that financial planning committee resolution.
I took these from the minutes today. I went and looked
Trust
at
council minutes or the financial planning?
Financial Planning Committee minutes. And I know the words fairness and was mentioned, and I think that's what staff have in mind. But the idea of coming up with options might, anyway, I'm just putting it out there.
Well, if they're going to reflect, hopefully they will reflect and come up with options. That's why we've made this as kind of neutral, well, as generally acceptable and as non-threatening as I can. And I would only add in discussion with one or two other people around this table that I hope that they will review, and I hope that will be done within a certain period of time, so that this is not something that we're discussing at the end of the year.
Well, it will have no impact on this year's requisition.
That remains to be seen.
Well, it can't, because legally they have to requisition it to the department through the minister by the end of the month.
That's their business. What they do will be their decision, taking place and agreed at this meeting coming. And they will or won't, what they will do is what they will do.
I'd also like to just point out that this increase, I figured it out for our household tax bill for a small house on Bowen Island. It will cost me an extra $9.12. So I'm just wondering whether we want to make such a push about something that is a small amount.
It's a big amount, I'll add it to.
Yeah, times the whole community times a number of years. It works over 4 years at the current rate. It works to $1.3 million. So whilst I accept that per household, it may be. And again, I can only refer councillors to the letters received, and that's why I want to be able to take this forward from council to our Islands Trust meeting.
Okay, can we get it on the table? Who wants to?
I just want to say one more thing, is that we did, the Islands Trust did hold a public comment period, and the municipality advertised that. It closed back on February the 11th. That was the official public comment on the budget, and that might have been a better time to produce this kind of discussion, but I also think there's something in working with respectful collaboration with partners, especially local government partners, people that are part of our local government system and who've already
Well, this
offered to do this.
is the conversation we want to open up, Maureen.
I'll be supporting this recommendation, and in part I'll be supporting it because I think it actually is a respectful recommendation. We received a lot of letters, and some of the letters were very strident.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't read this as a strident recommendation. I've had conversations with people who are very supportive of the Islands Trust, and they are also supportive of taking a look at the contribution that we make and making sure that we are not overpaying or that we are getting the maximum benefit from the relationship and supporting our Islands Trust, fellow islanders. It's been a long-standing arrangement, and sometimes long-standing arrangements need to be looked at again, in light of new circumstances. So I see this as an opportunity to work with a partner and reflect, and while it may give some of the more strident voices few, I think it also will give all of us some answers to questions that we may not even have known that we had. The discussion of the 3 buckets and the clarification around we pay for this and we don't pay for that, I found quite interesting. The in closer scrutiny of the numbers, I have more questions than I have answers at this point. So I'm hoping that I'll get some clarity out of this. And I really do see this as a respectful recommendation. If it weren't, I would not be supporting it.
Michael, can you move it?
Yes, I'd like to move. Now, I may need some wording.
Can I?
Yes, would you please, because thanks to Councillor Morsby, I think we have some added wording which I'd like to see included, plus the amount changed to the latest figure I have, which is 329,609.
Whereas the calculation for financial contribution from Bowen Island Municipality is embedded in the Islands Trust Act, Section 47, and further in Islands Trust Policy 7.2.6, Municipal Tax Requisition Calculation. And whereas Bowen Island Municipality has paid $4.4 million to the Islands Trust since incorporation, and the proposed 2019-2020 requisition is $329,609. Whereas the calculation for financial contribution is embedded in the Islands Trust Policy 7.2.6 Municipal Tax Requisition Calculation, and a general review of the policy is planned by the Islands Trust for 2019. And whereas concerns regarding the proposed requisition were raised and discussed by Council and the Islands Trust Executive at its March 4th, 2019 joint meeting, therefore be it resolved that Council requests the Islands Trust Council to review the municipal tax requisition calculation to reflect an equitable contribution for Bowen Island and its taxpayers.
So I think we have a different recommendation on our
The
yellow
yellow
cover
page
sheet.
doesn't have.
You
Okay.
have a whole bunch more whereases and
Yeah.
some here.
Okay, let's just clarify that.
Okay, so let me give it a go. Whereas Bowen Island Municipality has paid $4.4 million to Islands Trust its incorporation, and the proposed 2019-20 requisition is $329,609. Whereas the calculation for financial contribution is embedded in the Islands Trust Act, Section 47, and further clarified in Islands Trust Policy 7.2.6, Municipal Tax Requisition Calculation, and a general review of the policy is planned by the Islands Trust for 2019. And whereas concerns regarding the proposed requisition were raised and discussed by Council and the Islands Trust Executive at its March 4, 2019 joint meeting, therefore be it resolved that Council requests the Islands Trust Council to review the municipal tax requisition calculation to reflect an equitable contribution for Bowen Island and its taxpayers.
The only change I had was the dollar amount and the addition that was discussed about the whereas that reflects the Islands Trust.
Yeah, you put it in as a separate whereas.
Yeah, at the beginning, yes,
Yeah.
sorry to confuse, that was the only change,
Is that what it
I'm
was?
sorry to trick you.
Yeah.
So it
A
wasn't-
little late at night, we're not
Wasn't
quite
intentional.
there.
Put that whereas in after the first whereas, nobody would have twigged. Yeah.
I saw it. It was good.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Firstly, thank you, Councillor Morse, for that. I appreciate it. And certainly accept that as a friendly amendment. And I don't know whether we need to read it out or whether we feel we have it.
You just say I agree with that.
So I would like to propose that motion, please.
Okay, you moved it, second? Allison?
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion?
I'll be voting for it because I voted for it on the financial planning committee, so why not?
Okay, I'll ask a question, all in favor? David?
In favor.
Thank you, okay, it is unanimous.
Thank you, everybody, and also those people who helped me with the initial drafting, which ensured that I think it's a rather central position, rather than my pure position.
That's pretty long, 10 minutes. So we've got some committee reports here, if we can just keep them super short, and then I think
Okay.
we're...
11.2
Yeah.
is trustees Kale and Fast regarding discussion of the strategic plan, our strategic plan in relation to advocacy from the Islands Trust, some of the things they said they could do for us. I propose to defer that.
Oh, sorry.
Because we don't have the printed plans in front of us yet. And I made some notes, but they won't make any sense with us being able to
What
flip
would, I
through.
think, help the discussion as well, is if you can submit to
Yeah.
to vote maybe by, within a week, any ideas that you have, and
I
that can start gathering the
I'll do
discussion.
up a little report. And did we actually got the hard copies? Yeah?
They're in the admin office, yeah, there's
But
lots
they
of.
haven't been
I just
distributed
don't
yet.
have one in my hand
Yeah.
yet.
I
so
don't
was
think
hard-
they gave us enough
This is big one?
copies, hard copies, but they did, there's lots of
No,
materials that
that's
are on the
the
back.
Trust. We're talking about our.
We're talking about our strategic plan.
Yeah.
Okay, not
And
yet.
Ours.
Ours.
Yeah, they're being printed,
Yeah, so
sorry.
that we don't have them yet, so
Yeah.
let's defer.
I was a
and
little
I'll-
precipitous.
Yeah.
In the spirit of total cooperation, I
Thank you.
second that.
Okay.
Wonderful. Metro Vancouver. David, have you got anything for Metro Van when you're ready?
Sure, Gary, thank you. I had an interesting meeting of the Fraser Basin Flood Management Strategy Leadership Committee. And that group I probably mentioned earlier, they're assessing the costs and looking at the mitigation measures around the floods, both from sea level rise and from water coming down the Fraser River. There will be a workshop on that in the fall, but they're having meetings right now with 4 levels of government regarding funding sources for mitigation and also around governance. And the funding sources, this was a meeting then of local governments from the Fraser Valley and from Metro Vancouver. And we obviously said that there needs to be more funding for senior levels of government, that there was simply not enough from our property value, property tax base. The governance issue is an interesting one because it's a tricky one, because if one community does work building dikes and so on, but the neighbor doesn't, then obviously the community that did the effort pays a price. And so the agreement was that there needs to be a structure somewhat similar perhaps to the airport authority, where which would have decision-making authority to decide what to do and to spend money, so that we get past the problem of the chain being only as strong as its weakest link. So that was one thing that was done. They will now be then they've already met with First Nations. They will now meet with the feds and with the province around these 2 issues.
Okay.
The other thing was just a formal letter that's in the information items from Chair Bylaw appointing me as the chair of the Electoral Aid Committee.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, terrific, thank you.
Yeah, another committee, well done.
All right,
Good
Island Trust Municipal Trustees, have you got anything on the Island Trust business?
We leave tomorrow morning
Okay.
for Trust Council on Gabriel Island and we'll report back.
Thank you.
There's nothing on the agenda, any big decision items except for the budget, right?
The budget is the big item.
As it's a 481-page agenda, I do hope there is something.
Councillor Nicholson.
Nothing
Metro
to
Vancouver. Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Morris.
Nothing to report except the review of the regional transportation plan update is on track.
Okay,
There will be community involvement.
thank you. And items removed from the consent agenda, we have 3.1, is that still valid?
I would like to suggest that Hope and I need to discuss the actual wording of the resolution at the February 19th meeting, to get who voted and whatever, and I've been through it
Okay.
and read it, so I would like to defer that to the next meeting.
David also pulled it.
I agree, David. You pull it for the same reasons? 3.1 on the consent?
The minutes of February 19th?
Oh, we can't hear you.
David.
Right, thanks.
There you go.
I unmuted myself. Right, the minutes were just simply wrong in terms of that motion, that's who voted for it,
So we'll send you the redraft after Hope and I work on that tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll bring it back to the next council meeting.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
All right.
Which item was
That was the minutes.
That was
of the last
3.1.
one. For the
Okay,
last-
3.5.
the very last one?
Yeah.
Tim Rhodes, President of Bowen Island Health Center Foundation. He's sitting here, still here.
Why I was still
I
here.
know. The recommendation is the council appoint Councillor Kale as council liaison to the Bowen Island Health Center Foundation Board. So that was a request from the proponent, from the health, from the health foundation. Okay, so,
Yeah, I just was remembering back to Ellie Mina training, and this is his book that I sometimes refer to, because there was something about conflict of interest if you were on the board of,
If you're appointed by council, you get out of the conflict of interest. That was in the Lidstone legal seminar.
well, this is, if you'll let me finish my thought, I just wanted to be, it's a little late, and I'm sorry I'm not speaking as clearly as I would like to be, but I was worried that if we appointed, do we have a policy about appointing people on council to other boards? Because here we're
not-
appointing somebody
we're not
to
appointing him to the board.
charity.
He's a liaison between the foundation and the committee.
Yeah.
We'll
Do we
not
do
sit
that?
on that board.
Would
We'll
that
not
be
sit on that
analogous
board.
to the library board?
Yeah.
It would be a conflict of interest if he was on the board.
If he was on the board. Okay, that's my question really. That's the main one. It's not quite like the library, because the library is part of
It's a municipal
a
library.
municipal program. It's a municipal library, goes through our budget and all that. But anyway, okay, I just was concerned about the conflict of interest
No,
side, and I thought,
good
had that question been asked,
Yeah,
and
good.
obviously you thought about it, thank you.
Maureen, I know you have some, nothing?
Nothing.
Really? Okay.
So,
Anybody
as
else?
council liaison,
Yes.
are you expecting Councillor Kale to attend your board meeting?
That would be nice, yes.
Because otherwise, if you're just going to provide council with information, my druthers would be that you present reports to council, not present a report to Councillor Kale and then have him give us a report.
Well, no, it was our intent that he would attend the meetings.
Or that part of the meeting pertinent to council activities. I really do not need to go through the stitches and needles and bandages part.
Well, but I think it's very
Needles in the
important that, I can understand the logic, that somebody that sits at this table has listened to those conversations and understands, and therefore I would expect as a liaison that you would attend the meetings in full.
If invited.
Could we insert
Ours
the
are
words
really
non-voting?
Sure.
Non-voting, yes.
Yeah, if we could insert the words non-voting in front of liaison, then years from now, people will.
Actually, I wouldn't accept it if it was, I would not accept this
Right.
role if I had a voting part on
No,
that board.
of course
That would be totally inappropriate,
Because
and
that's
I
what we-
wouldn't do it.
That's what confused me, and just to
Yeah,
keep
fair
everything
comment.
clear, because it's
For
fundraising and
general,
charities
for general
and
consumption, I agree.
everybody,
Yeah.
then
Do you just want to add
that'd be
in
clear.
a non-voting capacity?
Yeah.
As council non-voting liaison.
Yeah.
As council non-voting liaison is what
Okay.
I was thinking.
That's even better.
Yeah.
Hope, have you got that?
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Can you just read it?
The council appoint Councillor Kale as council non-voting liaison to the Bowen Island Health Center Foundation.
Okay, any further
Board.
Board.
Foundation board.
Okay, I'm gonna move that. Second? Anyone? No,
I'll second it.
good idea.
How about I feel rather silly?
I'm just getting late. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor?
Okay.
Well, I second it.
Yeah, I stuck my hand up.
Okay. And David, you're in?
Yes, yeah.
Yep, I'm in favor.
All right, thank you very much. And, because I don't want to miss this, right to the back and we get question period.
Robert, are you still awake?
The only question I had was on the 30-day, 90-day thing, is that 30 or 90 days from that first resolution, or is that another 90 days from now?
From my technical perspective, it's 90 days from now.
Up to
90 days
Up
from
to
now?
Up to 90 days, yeah.
Thank you.
That's what I would say. All right, so we move to adjourn.
So moved. Motion to
Thank
adjourn.
you, second, Rob. We're done.
I took tomorrow off.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Sorry.
my goodness.